All right. It is live. At least I think it is. And let me go over here and check. Before we say our hellos and all that kind of stuff, I want to make sure we are up and running, which is very frustrating. There we are. Whoa, gosh, I've got all this happening here. Okay, yep, I'm a professional, folks. Okay.
There
So,
we are.
yeah, Jason, if you have it pulled up um, on your computer, you might have to mute your YouTube so that that doesn't come through.
Yeah, hold
But
on.
anyway, goodness, welcome everyone. We are here tonight live for a special. I don't want to call this Tank Talk Live. I want to call it We Gotta Talk. I came up with that title today for this live stream, and then I was like, you know what? I kind of like that. It kind of has a little ring to it. So we got to talk tonight to Jason from Primetime Aquatics. Jason, thank you for being a guinea pig here for me and trying this out for the first time.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I know we had a lot of fun the last time, so this is awesome. What better way to spend a Sunday evening or Sunday,
Sunday,
Saturday?
yeah.
What day is it today? Saturday, you know what day it is, whatever day it is. Saturday evening, hanging out, talking about fish and stuff.
I completely agree. I texted you earlier this week and I was like, hey, Lisa's not going to be here. I'm going to be home. I'm going to be bored. I want to do something, and I don't like leaving my house. So what do you think about doing a surprise live stream? And thankfully you were willing to do that. So very, very cool. Now, I want to say this real quick, folks. There's not going to be any echo jokes tonight because of this here. I'm not going to go into all the details. I just told Jason I don't want to talk about this today, but I did upgrade my equipment, and so hopefully there will be no echo. However, there is the issue sometimes with when we don't use headphones, there could be an echo, which would be from the computer coming through the microphone and going back to you. If you do have issues with that, if there is an echo like that, let me know, and Jason and I'll throw on headphones and we'll get rid of that. But this software is supposed to cancel that out, so we should be good to go there. So the interesting thing about tonight's live stream is that I have absolutely no agenda whatsoever. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I have nothing planned. It is just, hey, let's get together, let's have a conversation, and see what comes of it. That's kind of where we're at with this. So, if you have any particular things that you would like to see us discuss, definitely put it down in the chat, and we'll see if we can't pick it up. I wanted to check. I did put up a post literally like 10 minutes ago asking my channel members if they had anything that they wanted me to ask Jason. And so I'm going to try to find that real quick. And then, okay. Wow. You're a real pro, John. Maybe you should have thought of having that pulled up before we started here tonight. So why don't you act like the professional there, Jason, and maybe you can, maybe you have something to talk about while I figure this out.
Well, multi-tank addiction said is Jaso. I don't even know my own name tonight. Jason echoing. So you'll have to tell us, everyone, if I am echoing, then what I can do is I can put my headphones on, and then we won't have to worry about echo on my side. I don't have the super special, awesome software, and my mic's not as good.
Well, the
So I've got,
software is supposed to cancel it out on both sides. So I
okay.
think that was Chris being a rascal. You know him. I think
Yeah.
that was him being a silly goose, and I think he was. I think that might have been a joke at you and I looking so familiar. Not from what you and I looking so similar. Uh,
This is going to be a great live stream. We're getting our words out real well so
yeah, this
far.
is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was Chris being a silly goose there,
Okay.
because that's what Chris does. He is a silly
Thanks.
goose.
Chris just wanted to see me wear headphones.
Yeah, I don't think we don't need to
You're,
rush out to do that yet. So,
yeah.
okay, I do have some questions that were put in from the uh, channel members, and I have not proofread these.
Oh boy.
So, uh, let's start off with, and we're going to get to the ones that are in the live chat too, folks. Don't worry. But this is just kind of to get us started here tonight. Hi, I want to completely change my substrate from gravel to sand and not sure how to do it safely for the fish. It's only a 45-liter tank. Don't know what that, you're the professor. You probably know what that is, but with a crazy yo-yo loach and 5 barbs. Love that loach. I've only been in the hobby about 6 months and I'm completely hooked on your channel. Great work. See, I probably wouldn't have read that part live if I had proofread this because I don't need to self-aggrandize myself. Is that the right term? But thank you so much, Kathy, for the compliments there. But this show's all about Jason, so I'm going to let you run with that. And
so substrate, huh? All right. So we've done this a number of times in our fish room where you've got one look going on and then you want to change it up. Maybe you change the fish that you have in your tank and you're like, okay, you know what? Some of these fish that I have now, I really love the sand. Or like what we did in one of our tanks, we had like blue and black gravel that I put in a tank because Joanna wanted it now. She wanted that, 10 years ago. And then she looked at it like, oh, wow, this gravel is really ugly. So we switched it over. What I do, when I'm going to switch substrate, at that point, it's a total tank breakdown. There's really, with the fish still in the tank, in my opinion, it's so hard because you start, taking all the decorations out. You're trying to scoop the gravel out of there. There's mulm flying everywhere. The tank is now all covered in stuff, even if you gravel vac, and now it's hard to see the fish. And now they're in that environment. So for me, if I'm going to change the substrate, I'm just going to break the tank down. Now save the media. Save your cycled filter media. What I also do is if you're going to reuse your decorations, put that ideally in a 5-gallon bucket of tank water. Get an air stone in there because you've got a lot of beneficial bacteria on those plastic plants or real plants, on your decorations, your caves, everything there. Let's keep that bacteria alive because you're going to lose a fair amount of your beneficial bacteria when you remove the substrate. So I would do that and I know it stinks, but I would personally just break that tank down, then add the sand, put my stuff back in, dechlorinate the water. You've got cycled filter media in there now. The decorations that you had, if you're going to reuse them, they're still going to have beneficial bacteria, and then you'll get the repopulation in your sand.
Yeah, first of all, folks, I did just turn Jason's audio down a little bit. He wasn't sounding too loud to me. But I did notice you were clipping a little bit. So I know those microphones that you're using are pretty daggone sensitive. So yeah. I did turn Jason's audio down a little bit for the ones that were saying he's so much louder than me. Nobody complaining. Don't worry, Jason. But
oh no, goodbye.
Yeah, such a sensitive guy. Yeah. The strategy that I've used before is removing half the substrate and then waiting for a little bit. If you're in a hurry to do this, obviously this wouldn't work. But if I'm going from gravel to sand, I'm not going to pull half of the gravel out and then put half sand in and have half and half, because then it all gets mixed up. Instead, I would just pull half of that gravel out, let things kind of sit for a little bit. When I say a little bit, a week or so, and then pull the rest of it out and just put the sand in. That's the way I've done it. But I completely agree with you. Just take it all out. I think that so many people are afraid to take all the water out of their tank. Like if you take all the water, oh my God, it's going to ruin everything. No, it's not. It's not. Can it have an impact? Sure. But it's not going to ruin everything. So,
and I think the other thing too is the beneficial bacteria is not in the water column. It's connected to surfaces, whether that's the surface of your tank, the decorations, the substrate, inside your filters, your filter media. It's really not in the water. So I've seen a lot of people, even with very sensitive cichlids, do water changes that are like 90%, where their fish are basically just hugging the substrate and they're kind of flopping around. They drain it all the way down. They do this every single week, and then they're doing 95% water changes and have had really good luck with that, as long as your temperature is correct, as long as you're not waiting too long to do it. So you don't want to wait, 2 months before you do a water change, and all of a sudden your nitrates are, 300 parts per million, and your water hardness is all kind of messed up, and then you go ahead and do that 90% water change, and the water parameters change quite a bit. That's one thing. But if you're doing it every week, I've seen people do that and have very little issues, as long as the water parameters are matching well before and after the water change.
I saw a video on YouTube, and it might be the one that you were referring to. It was a discus farm. It's on YouTube somewhere, and they literally drain all of the tanks completely down. The
Hmm.
fish are laying on the
On
bottom
the sides.
flopping,
Yeah.
and then it all fills up. Now the tank's only empty for like 10 seconds, and then it
Right.
fills right back up again. But it's like, man, that's hardcore there.
Well, I saw it happen. I was at I belong to the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association, and I did a tour of Jason's fish room, another person named Jason, and he has a lot of fairly sensitive Lake Tanganyika cichlids, and you always hear, they're really sensitive to large water changes. And in every tank he had, he was draining that thing 90, 95% down. The fish are kind of flopping on their side just for a few seconds and then filling it back up. I'm like, don't you have problems with that? He's like, never, not once. And, he's been keeping fish for decades. He just said, as long as my water parameters are consistent, especially temperature, he's never had an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the reluctance to doing all of that, because all of us YouTubers, we all talk about it like, be careful with your cycle, don't lose your cycle and all that kind of stuff. And doing something that radical is risky. It certainly is, but I mean, don't panic.
Right.
It's fine. And like you said, the bacteria is not in the water. Every time I've said that, and you're the freaking professor here, so let's
Right.
hear it from you. But every time I've said that, people have been like, oh no, there is trace levels of bacteria in the water. And I'm like, okay, but when you're talking about trace levels, you're
Right.
talking about such an insignificant amount that it's not going to impact anything. So, but that's, I don't know. I want to keep on going on all of that, but, okay, let me go to another one here, because we could go on that for all night long. So, and if I am missing any super chats, folks, thank you for that. I will get to them. Don't worry. I want to keep going down the question train. I've got this wizard of fish keeping here on with me. This knowledgeable bank of information. I want to bounce as much off of him as I possibly can. Here's one that we can have some fun with. I don't know your position on this. I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years, or since last year, but I don't know your position on this. Caleb's Aquatics is trying to get us arguing here, maybe.
Oh boy, here we go.
He says, what do you think of hybrids?
Oh, that's a real charged question, isn't it? Well, I think if you look at my fish room, you're going to see there are some hybrids there. I have two feelings about them. I think the first one is from selling fish at local swaps and auctions. Some of my best selling fish are dragon bloods. Some of them are OBs, and I get my OBs when I hybridize my red empress cichlids with dragon bloods, which is already a pretty much a form of a hybrid, and they're absolutely beautiful. They're some of my favorite fish in the fish room just because of the way the colors pop. I've got a few peacocks right now that are hybrids that are smaller, that are showing unbelievable color. I have seen people, we have a club member in the GCCA, Greater Chicago Cichlid Association, who he takes pure strains and he mixes them and sees what comes of them. And some of the most unbelievably beautiful fish I have ever seen, cichlids, were these hybrids that he was creating. Now, that being said, I think we need to be really careful. When we create the hybrids, I don't necessarily think that that's something we want to just bombard the industry with. I think you need to be very clear that, if someone's selling a hybrid, if it's, this beautiful male peacock, that you label it as such, this is a hybrid. I think for fish that are relatively rare, I would probably back off on that a little bit. And I think that, anything where you've got, and I draw the line, and it's an interesting line. Like, I don't think I would ever hybridize my multis and my simlas. I don't know why I feel so strongly about that. But then when it comes to peacocks, I'm like, yeah, whatever. These are really cool looking. So I don't mind them. I also don't think that we should just get rid of all the pure strains, because there are tanks that I have where I've got a 75-gallon tank where it's specifically set up to create these OBs, where most of my other tanks, they're species only tanks. So whether that's my Star Sapphires or a lot of my Mbuna cichlids, Eureka Reds, I've done that with them. The Sulfur Heads, where it's strictly just line bred, and those fish are absolutely gorgeous as well. So I'm a little lenient when it comes to the hybrids. I think they're cool. I think they get some people into the hobby. I think they get some people keeping cichlids that might not normally keep them. So I don't mind them. But I can certainly understand when people are like, no, hybrids should not be created. They don't like them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree at all, except for the part where you said you can understand where some people would be like mad about it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, I don't understand that. I
Right.
don't understand what could make somebody that angry about it. I'm one of those people that I believe we can have a differing opinion and we can still be friends and we can still
Sure.
talk, and because we differ in opinions about something, we don't instantly become enemies. And I'm not talking about me and you. I'm talking about
Sure.
anybody. If we have a difference of opinion, that's all it is, and I'm okay with that. Um, my opinion on them is, like you said, there's so many people that are absolutely infatuated with hybrids. That's what brought them into the hobby, and they're two fish combined, and it was their first spawning they ever had, and it's so exciting, even though
Right.
it's a yellow lab and a whatever. It's exciting for them, and it's fun, and it invigorates the hobby. I just can't. What I can't buy into is the argument that it's going to ruin the hobby. That to
Right.
me takes it to another level that I think is a bit ridiculous. I don't think it's going to ruin the hobby, uh, unless you want to consider all the flower horn people ruining the hobby. That's a pretty popular
Yeah.
segment of the hobby, and we all know hybrid or flower horns are hybrids.
Yep.
I mean, so I don't know. I mean, good job, Caleb, getting us fired
Yeah.
up here, but
Well,
at least
and
we're
it's
not
not,
fired up with each other. But it's
you know, and it's not just that. Right now I'm doing a unit in speciation in one of my biology majors course, and just when you define what a species is, it's a very muddy definition. What does it mean to say it's a group of organisms that are found in nature that when they breed they produce successful offspring? And yeah, I get in nature those details are kind of worked out where a lot of times, at least in terms of fish, the females select the males based on certain characteristics. But I don't think we fully appreciate that at some point fish hybridize. That's how we get new species, or they form a hybrid zone that eventually becomes their own population and splits off, and that becomes some type of either a location collection point or a different species. It's happening in nature. I'm not saying that we should necessarily exacerbate it and speed it up in the aquarium, although again, it's not something I really stress about.
Yeah, I think that I think some people just take it a bit too far
Yeah.
when it comes to the hybrid thing, and I mean that's true in everything. It doesn't matter what we talk about. There's going to be, I don't want to call them extremists because that's just, come on, that's crazy. But um, there's going to be people that are very passionate about
Sure.
particular things, and hybrids are one of those kind of hot button things. Like, okay, you're running out of things to talk about. You want to have some fun? Hybrids, and, and then there we go. But yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with that. I'm trying to pull up my chat. I was realizing something was wrong here, and it's because I don't have my chat pulled up on my iPad. That's why everything's all
Uh,
messed up for me. Um, so I'm trying to get to that. But
Well, and while you're doing that, the other thing to think about is how many hybrids have already been created in the aquarium hobby that nobody questions. And even if that's through either hybridization or line breeding to the point, and that's a better conversation to have is how far should you take line breeding when you have a desirable trait, let's say in a betta or a molly or even a cichlid, and all of a sudden you've line bred them to the point where, yeah, you've got these really desirable finnage characteristics or colors, but it's introduced significant amounts of genetic mutations where now these fish aren't living nearly as long, or they're prone to tumors, or their immune system is weakened to the point where now they spread disease amongst other fish. That is a separate conversation that I think is one that probably warrants a little bit more thought than even hybridization, because often your hybrids they can often be very, very healthy, very robust, and it's the line breeding sometimes that can really cause some issues.
my sister was in the process of establishing a breeding colony of Bernese Mountain Dog and
Mm,
poodles.
yeah.
She had 6 poodles that she was going to breed with her male Bernese Mountain Dogs to create Bernie Doodles, is what they're called. And something that you said earlier, that the hybrids can be very healthy and very hardy. the whole purpose for doing that was to get a dog that has some of the characteristics of a Bernese Mountain Dog,
Uh-huh.
but can live 14, 16 years.
Right.
One of the things that kind of drove me away from big dogs, I know we're not talking about dogs here, but
Yeah.
is their short lifespan. I mean, I become so attached to dogs that it's almost like unhealthy.
Yeah.
And to have one that's life expectancy is only 8 to 9 years, it's like, man, I don't even want to get that dog because
Right.
I'm going to get too attached and then lose it. So to be able to breed a Bernese Mountain Dog that lasts longer is a really cool idea. But that's one of the things that made her want to do that. She ended up having to get out of doing it. It's a long story, but yeah, it's true with dogs too. They become very hardy and hypoallergenic too, is the other thing. A
Right.
Bernese
Right.
Mountain Dog that's not going to shed and destroy your house from all of the hair. So,
Yeah.
Unfiltered Aquarist asks, do I need to shave my head also to be in the Cool Kid Club?
Well, I think
Hey,
isn't that like your upper tier, thing for your memberships that's how you gain street cred at KG Tropicals. You shave your head, you grow the beard, and yeah, I think you should do it.
yep. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to be a part of the club,
Yeah.
do it. I mean, we can't take you seriously if you don't. One of the things I wanted to talk about was something that you and I talked about quite a bit at the Aquatic Experience was how many people, first of all, confused us
Oh my
at the
gosh.
event, but then also there were so many people that came up to you and I when we were together
Yep.
and they said, the two of you are the only channels that we watch. Like you
It's
two are the ones. And it's like, that,
indeed there is a club.
yeah, I guess. I mean, but
Yeah.
that was a thrill. And it's funny. I mean, people would see Jason standing with Joanna, his wife, and they would look at him funny. Like, I thought he was
Yeah.
with Lisa. Why is he with that lady? And I mean, it's all kinds of fun stuff
Oh
happened.
yeah.
And then Lisa actually admitted to almost smacking Jason on the butt because she was walking up from behind and thought that he was me. Which, if I were you, I'd be very insulted by that because
No, not at
from the
all.
waist down, you and I, or from the neck down, you and I look very different. So I'd be offended by that if I were you. But
I'm not offended at all. I'm just glad I didn't get smacked by someone, and then Joanna sees him like, what is this all about?
and then all of a sudden you're in trouble. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm in trouble because from behind I have the same bald head that John does. I mean, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun stuff. Let me get through a couple of these super chats here real quick. My Aquarium Show with the $5 says, hey, how's it going? Community just joined from Texas. Very, very cool. Fish Tank Barn with his usual $5 ice cream fund. Our goal is about $12,000 worth of ice cream money is what Mike's going to end up contributing by the time there's another event. Multi-Tank Addiction with another $2. He comes through all day long with the $2 super chats, and he just gave a big old thumbs up, one of those stickers, which is pretty daggone cool. Nick Tenick, huge fan of both of you, planning on getting some Geophagus Tapajos.
Nice.
Thanks. Is it Tapajos? Is that how you
Yeah,
pronounce it?
Tapajos. Those are absolutely gorgeous fish. You're going to love them.
Yeah, you're the Geophagus guy, so if you want to speak more on those, you certainly can.
Well, the Geophagus are great. I mean, the nice thing about those particular Geophagus is they don't get as large as some of the other ones. So, you might get some Geophagus that are 10 inches or maybe even larger. And now you're like, okay, well, what kind of tank am I going to keep these things in at 125? But the Tapajos, I've had a group of 4 of them in a 55-gallon living happily and healthy and breeding like crazy. And they've got amazing colors. And the fins on those fish, probably the best finnage color you will find on a Geophagus Tapos. They do have, at times, a little bit more attitude than some of the others, but very cool fish.
There was a Geophagus when I went to get the 2 arowanas a few weeks ago. They had some albino Geophagus something, and Lisa.
The Heckelei, probably, right?
I don't remember because, I mean, my brain, but they were absolutely gorgeous, and Lisa wanted to buy like 6 of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I mean, what if I tell you no, that's not going to stop you. So
Right.
But she ended up not doing it. So, I mean, but they were absolutely gorgeous. I've seen them at this fish store every time I've gone there. So if she ends up wanting them again, they're there.
So they're probably the only really pretty ones that I've seen that are albino are they're actually the genus name is Acarichthys heculi. They also call them Geophagus heculi, but they are amazing looking fish. They were, I want to say, at one of the rare fish auctions I was at. I really want them. They had a bag there. I think it might have been 3 or 4 like almost adult fish, and they went for an insane amount of money, well over $100. And at a auction, that's quite a bit of money for that many fish. But oh yeah, they're pretty.
Yeah, these I want to say they were like $40 a piece, and they were probably like 3 inches.
Okay, yeah.
Which I didn't think was outrageous. I mean,
No.
I don't know anything about the fish, but I was like, okay, that's reasonable, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Scott from King and Queen Cichlids, a friend of both of ours, says,
Yeah.
best tattoos, John or Jason. I don't know if he's asking what our personal best tattoos are or if yours are better than mine. Well, I've only got
Yours
the
are
one.
better. I'm gonna just step out of that
I've
one.
only got the
All
one.
of mine are 20 something, well, almost 30 years old, so they're all faded. And
Well,
yeah.
I've only got the one, so we can't even compete because you're much more covered than I am. I think what he's trying to do is get the viewers to determine who has the better tattoos, and it's really not fair because I've only got the one, and it's script. Jason's got the artwork on him, so that's not really a competition. So, multi-tank addiction again. What is Jason's opinion on Project Piaba and why?
So my opinion on Project Piaba. So I did a video with Project Piaba, and what I thought was interesting is in some of the comment sections, it was clear that some people didn't understand what it is that they actually do and why they are so valuable to the areas in which they work. And basically what they're doing is they're trying to teach sustainable wild fish management. And so what they're trying to prevent is people going in and decimating populations, bringing fish out of those areas unsustainably, having populations crash. And they're teaching them, okay, here's some sustainable practices. Here are fish that are probably not going to make it to the next breeding season. They're not going to be used as a food source. They're really not going to be used for much of anything. Collect those, make money. And oh, by the way, as you do that, you want to properly manage the ecosystem around these areas, because if you don't, the fish are going to go away, they're going to die, and you're going to be out of a livelihood. So they're doing some great work. Project Piaba is doing some great work, and our relationship with them, Primetime Aquatics, that's certainly not over by any stretch. We are going to be doing more together, talking more, doing more in-depth interviews, but they're doing some good things in the areas in which they work.
Well, and your channel, The River Life, and Multi-Tank Addiction are all doing a great job spreading awareness of Project Piaba. I don't spread the word nearly enough, and I should. But it's one of those things. You got 150 things running around in your mind, and you just can't keep it all. Right. It's difficult. Yeah. But I truthfully don't know enough about it to be able to speak fluently about what they're doing. Which is why I did not participate in that video thing at the Aquatic Experience. It wasn't because I didn't. Obviously, I'm not afraid to be on video, but it was. I don't really know what to say.
Sure.
So I didn't do anything with that. But I think that what they're doing, what I've heard of what they're doing out there, is amazing, and I think it's awesome. And I think you and River Life and Multi-Tank Addiction are doing great things to spread awareness. So good job there. Sue Judith says, thank you to both of you for what you bring to the hobby and for making newbies like me not feel intimidated. Being a single mom, I love that your spouses and kids are involved. Yes, we are lucky guys when it comes to that. That's for sure. Not only are our wives gorgeous, but they're also into fish. And that, that's a win-win for everybody.
Right now,
didn't just get weird. I'm just,
Well, yeah, I understand. Right now, as we speak, I'm sitting here with you guys having an awesome time. Joanna is in the fish room right now, setting up a table full of all kinds of stuff. She's got a video coming out on Monday. I don't know what it's about yet. She's like, well, just come down after the live stream. I need you to film it. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So she's got some tips and tricks for aquascaping or some new stuff that she's working on. So it's fun.
How about that?
And John, I know you get excited too when Lisa's doing her thing and she can just kind of take it and run with it and share what she likes and what's important to her. It's fun. It makes the hobby more enjoyable.
It definitely does. And I can tell you, when I came back from my break last year in September, I think it was. I actually came back earlier than that, but anyway, who cares? It went to a completely different place when she came back. It's like when I came back, she was kind of like, whatever. I mean, I'm doing my thing with my cats and all of this kind of stuff.
Right.
But then when it was actually the aquatic experience that did it. We went to the aquatic experience. We came back. She was all amped up over it and was just so excited. And it went to a completely different level. I mean, it's a completely different experience having a spouse that is interested in it too. And,
well, and not only that, it gets it gets considerably more expensive when you find yourself being the voice of reason. Sometimes, like maybe we don't need that extra tank, or maybe when we go to these auctions, we shouldn't spend $100 on this fish.
Don't I know that's true? Don't I know that's true? Good Lord. I mean, and she works from home, and we live 2 miles from a Petco. So she's like, if she gets an idea in her head, it's instantaneous. She's over there buying a new tank, setting it up. And I'm like, oh God, what are you doing to me? But anyway, Multi-Tank Addiction also became a member again. I think he was a member before and maybe decided, we weren't giving him enough and took a break and then came back. So that's very, very cool. Or maybe you just had to renew, whatever. Thank you for that. To Chris. And I guess I haven't really talked about it, but this live stream is set up for only members to be able to participate in the chat. I have to give my members perks somehow, folks. Everybody can watch, but only members can actually chime in on the chat. So hopefully that doesn't make too many people angry at me. But it's free for everybody to watch. It doesn't cost anybody any money. So let's see. So Allie Patton, who is a doll, she is a huge supporter of KG Tropicals and a mod in which she's probably not having to really do any work today because it's all members that are in the chat today. But she asked, how did you get started in the hobby and did it influence your career or vice versa? That's to you because she knows my story.
Oh. How did I get started in the hobby? I got my first fish when I was about 6 years old, and we went to a fish store. And luckily, my parents were really supportive. So we went to this fish store, and I remember I was going to get a goldfish. And back in those days, back a long time ago, you just put them in a fishbowl. That's what you did. So we got this goldfish. It was a black fancy goldfish. I remember there's all these goldfish in this tank. There was only one black fancy goldfish. I wanted that one. It was missing an eye. And so whatever happened, I don't know. I just remember it had like a little line sticking out of its eye, but no actual eye on one side of its body. I'm like, that's the one I want. And the guy at the pet store is kind of looking at me. My mom's like, are you sure that's the one you want? I'm like, no, that is the one I want. I want the black goldfish. And so I don't know if they just probably gave it to my mom for free or probably a discount because the thing was all, missing an eye. So that's really what kicked it off. And put that goldfish in a bowl just like you're not supposed to do. And we changed the water every day because back in those days, it's just kind of what you did. You'd set out the gallon of water and you leave that out overnight and it would dechlorinate. And then you just keep changing the water. And I don't know how long that fish lived, probably not a super long time, but it just snowballed from there. And then from the fish bowl, we got a 10-gallon. And then my parents just kind of let me do a lot with fish. So I had a 10-gallon. At one point, I remember I had a 10, and then we moved up to a 20. And my 20-gallon, I'll never forget this tank, it had a gold, like a flake gold background. It was probably the ugliest tank in the world, but back then it looked super cool. Friends of the family gave it to us. And then I had a 35-gallon, and they were all set up. And I never stopped at that point. I remember as a kid, the first time we ever got cichlids, my mom spent all this time in a 35-gallon tank. She bought 3 different types of gravel, red, white, and blue. She wanted to have a blue part, a white part, and a red part, just, all separate. And we put, we had Aratus. I think there were some yellow labs in there, maybe some red zebras. This is a long time ago. And we put these fish in there. They're awesome. And everybody's all happy. And I remember within like 2 days, they had dug up all the gravel. They had mixed it all together. I remember my mom being so mad. She's like, I spent all this time on this substrate and now it's all messed up. And that was just what those fish do. So that, from the earliest age, 6 years old, I've been keeping fish. And then but I think what really guided me into my career path, which is biology and microbiology, was that, but also we were allowed to just go out and spend all day at the creek. And so we'd go there and we'd catch everything imaginable at this creek. Fish, sunfish, there were wild guppies, crayfish, snakes, turtles, frogs, you name it. That creek had everything. And we'd spend all day there. We'd bring home these big 5-gallon buckets and we'd set up all these tanks all over the garage because we weren't allowed to have the snakes in the house. And for a while, we weren't allowed to have the frogs in the house. But then my mom eventually broke down. It's like, okay, you can keep the frogs in the house, especially in the winter. So we did. And I'll never forget this. I had a 30-gallon, maybe it was that 35-gallon at the time. I had frogs. And I had like 8 frogs in there. Now, keep in mind, I was a kid, so I know that maybe you shouldn't have 8 frogs in a 35-gallon tank, but I did. And I went to go take care of the tank, and I left the lid off. And all the frogs got out, and they're jumping all over the hallway, down the stairs. And my mom's screaming at me, get the frogs, get the frogs. So it was just that kind of a childhood. I think I spent so much time around wildlife that it was kind of a natural fit that I would eventually, fall in love with how life happens in biology and microbiology.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's, I can just picture the frogs. It makes me think of that documentary that was done about the toads in Australia.
Yes.
New Zealand or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was my house, only with 8 frogs jumping down the orange carpeted hallway because it was the early 80s or something. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Jack Turner and Miss Kai, I'm hoping I'm saying that name right, have just decided to become members and join the team. Very, very cool. Thank you for doing that. I'm really not trying to be rude. When you're talking, I'm like looking down and all this. I'm trying to find the next question, and it's difficult to do because I don't want to be rude to you and act like I'm disinterested in what you're saying.
Well, if it's any consolation, I can't really see you when I'm talking because the computer's on this side of me, so I'm just looking at the camera. So you can do whatever you want. You could be making faces at me, and I probably wouldn't know it.
Well, and I remember last time, specifically, I was doing that, and you were talking about something, and then you said, what do you think about that? And I was like, I don't even know what you just said. So I'm like very cognizant of that now, and it
I still haven't gotten over that. I'm still hurt. I think about that pretty much daily.
Oh,
yeah. I put it on my things to be resolved wall. I just made that up, but now I have one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I deserve that. That was really, really rude of me to do that. And I did feel bad, and it was very awkward. And yeah, I mean, I still remember it. So obviously,
I just hope that you carry that guilt around with you for the rest of your life. And that when you're 80, you're like, there's a couple things in my life I regret, and that's right in the top 3. If that happens, I might forgive you.
I mean,
it's going to take time. There's a healing process.
If there's anything I can do to win back your friendship, then no, because we're still friends. You haven't decided.
It's more than that, John. It was the trust. You spent so long earning my trust, and you just broke it. All right, I'm over it. Okay.
Okay, good. All right. Let me see here. Okay, this is a good one for the professor. It doesn't offend you if I say that, does it? Like for the professor, does that
That's
bother you?
what everybody calls me all week. So
okay, good. Because I mean, it's out of respect that I'm saying that. It's not like I'm not doing it to be silly. So, how do you get rid of diatoms in freshwater tank? 5-gallon, heavy with plants, 0 nitrates. Confused on how I got the hot mess tank. Is 2 months old. Which sounds about right for when the diatom infestation would happen. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So you said the tank is 2 months old, planted. What I found interesting is the comment, no nitrates. Is that what it said?
It says 0 nitrates, but you know as well as I do, Jason, every single person that asks for advice says all the levels are perfect. They all say it, and I probably would too.
Yeah, and well, that in particular is interesting. I know you got plants in the tank, but I'm just curious if you've checked ammonia or nitrites if you're getting any spikes there, because zero nitrates, even with a planted tank, often you're going to have some. It might only be 3 to 5 parts per million, but often there's a little bit of nitrates in the tank. So I wonder if there's any issues with maybe ammonia or nitrites. There might not be. One of the things you can do is try, messing with the light cycle or the light intensity. Maybe if your lights are too intense for the depth of the tank that you have, that can be an issue. But the zero nitrates, so that usually if you've got problems, it's because there is some type of imbalance, and usually it's going to be nutrients. And so it's going to be nutrients in the water column. So if you got a lot of plants and they're rooted, they're not going to take up as many nutrients from the water column. And so then you start getting algae issues or diatom algae in other places, especially on the glass or on the surfaces of your plants. But the no nitrates thing, that's what kind of sparked my attention a little bit. Just double check your ammonia, double check your nitrites, and also double check your fertilization schedule and make sure you're not putting in more, especially if you're using liquid fertilizers. And if you're like most of your plants are root feeders, if you're using too many liquid fertilizers, that may not be helping the plants. And then that allows some of the algae and things to grow.
You're fertilizing the algae.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and zero nitrates, I mean, that would concern any fish keeper, but I found, and I'm sure you do too, it's when I had my fish store, everybody that came in with a problem, they would say, all my levels are perfect. And I was like, okay, well, when did you check them? Well, I didn't check them, but I just know they're perfect. It's like, really? I mean, so I kind of, and this is absolutely no disrespect to Charlotte Jackson. Everybody does this. When people say, I have this problem and everything checks out perfect, I tend to kind of skip over that part because like that's kind of what everybody says, and it's not always true.
Yeah, and again, the zero nitrates thing is, and now to get rid of it, obviously you want to dial those things in, but there are plenty of organisms that will take care of that. If you don't have really thin leaf plants, and depending, was the size of the tank mentioned? I don't remember.
5 gallons.
Ooh, 5 gallons. All right, so that might be a little bit more difficult, but maybe like a mystery snail or two. I found they do a pretty good job. Like our breeding 20 long for mystery snails is like 100% algae free. It's completely spotless. Obviously, I've got a lot of mystery snails in there, but for that size tank, they may help just kind of keep it under control. But you want to identify the issue. If the light's too strong, the intensity is too high, or the zero nitrates thing makes me think that maybe there's still some ammonia or nitrites in there.
Mm-hmm. What is fueling the growth of the algae? And that's like, I think every new fish keeper's natural reaction is, I have algae, how do I get rid of it? And you have to make them understand the way to get rid of it is to prevent it from happening, to solve the problem that's causing it. Don't just get rid of it. You want to get rid of it, sure, but also let's figure out why it's there to begin with. And it could be the light cycle, the fertilizers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So there's a good question here. Unfiltered Aquarius asks, well, what do you guys mean when you say check water parameters? That's a really good question, because sometimes, especially it's just a comment like, oh yeah, check your water parameters. So that awesome question. What I mean by that is do the water testing for ammonia. So, you can use the test strips, or you can use the liquid test kits, but ammonia is a big one. Nitrites, make sure ammonia and nitrites should be pretty much at zero. I've done videos on sometimes ammonia, you might get a reading, but it's the unionized ammonia that you're really concerned about. But just generally speaking, if you just keep it real simple, check for ammonia, check for nitrites, double check your pH and make sure that it's in with a reasonable level. And it probably isn't, that most likely isn't going to contribute to algae growth. But just generally speaking, when we're saying check water parameters, it's basically the things that you would normally test if you dipped a 5-in-1 test strip in there, or you had the liquid test kit, which is going to be ammonia, nitrites, nitrates, pH, and water hardness. And with that, you might as well just make sure your temperature is correct as well.
Very, very good. Good advice. Chelsea Riley gave a $5 super chat with a laughing pear emoji, which is absolutely adorable. And then I saw my name highlighted here. Multi-Tank Addiction said, I just noticed you got a new mic. I did. Yes. It is the the king of all microphones. Got two of them, and I'm broke now. So thank you for noticing. And it's so frustrating because I just got to this place where I think it was 2 weeks ago, I've paid off the final amount of KG Tropical's debt. We've been saddled with this debt for years from the shop and all of that. I finally paid off the last penny. And then I had to do this $1,300. And it's like, okay, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to pay this stuff off, which will be when the next Google payment comes in, because the money that comes in goes right back in. I mean, that's the way we do it with our YouTube channel. So that when I get that, that's going to pay this stuff off. And then like my computer's going to die or something. I mean, that's the way it works for me. I can never get ahead, but yeah, very excited about these. And I'm very excited for nobody to complain about echoes in this Thursday's Tank Talk Live. But Jose Fernandez, my two favorite fish keeping YouTubers together. Awesome. You see, there it is again. And Jose Fernandez is one of my favorite guys.
Yeah, Jose's awesome.
He is the one that bought me my bobblehead of me. And I don't know, did you see that, Jason?
I did, yeah.
It's one of my prized possessions. And we've ordered. He also sent us the money to get one of Lisa, which we have ordered, but we have not received it yet. So I love that guy. He's a bobblehead guy. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
And then I'm not skipping over everybody intentionally, folks. I promise. Whoa. Okay. This is confusing. It's a $50 super chat, which is insane, but it says MX. What does that mean? MX50. Is that a foreign currency, foreign to us? I'm not sure what that is. Whatever it is, wow, thank you. Very, very generous of you. Opinion on DIY root tabs made of Osmocote? I'm not a plant guy, so I don't know that. I see everyone talking about them in planted aquarium forums. Are they safe? You're going to have to take that, Jason, because...
So, I did a video on DIY Osmocote root tabs, and I have used them for the last few years. I didn't notice any issues, so I just took the Osmocote Plus. I got the gel caps off of Amazon. They come they're super cheap for like even 1,000 of them, and you just put the Osmocote inside. You bury the gel caps like you would a root tab. I think maybe the concern for some is that there's more copper usually in the Osmocote Plus relative to the root tabs that are made specifically for the aquaculture industry. So that might be a concern maybe if you've got some invertebrates that maybe the copper is going to interfere. Now, to be clear, I've been using those root tabs in planted tanks with shrimp, with snails, and never had an issue. I'm not saying that you won't. I think the other thing is that when those gel capsules, when they disintegrate, and they do pretty fast, if you do any kind of gravel vacuuming, if you disturb the substrate at all, the little beads of Osmocote will pop up back into the substrate. Now, again, I haven't noticed any issues. I just push them back down. I've never noticed any issues with like excessive algal growth or fish dying. Now, if there are people out there that said, oh yeah, I used Osmocote root tabs and everything died, I would consider that as well. I'm just on my side of things, from my perspective, I haven't had the issues that, people claim to have. So I've used them at one point I was using them in every single tank that I had that had root feeding plants, and not once did I ever notice any problems. And we occasionally test for ammonia and nitrites and never had any issues there as well. But I've heard people say, hey, I put these things in and I had an ammonia spike. Now, is that due to the root tabs? Is that a new tank? Sometimes you just don't know.
See, that's why it's good to have you. Maybe you should just come on every week. That way, when I don't know something, I can just say, well, Jason knows. Lisa probably would have taken that if she was here with us, because she's the one that messes with root tabs. I mean, look at my fish. I don't have any plants. But Charlotte Jackson came in and said, you know what? Y'all are so cool for answering my question. She gave a $20 super chat with a "You Are Amazing" sticker. I don't know if you've seen the stickers yet, but that's a new thing, and it's really cute. Really cute. Tiffany White did the same thing with a $10 super chat and a yippee sticker. These are adorable. I'm loving it.
And I think we need to say thank you to Tiffany, because at the Aquashellas and the Aquashellas Chicago and Dallas, oh my gosh, those treats, that's what keeps us going at the table with all the cookies and all that stuff. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Let's see. A lot of people say, somebody said MX is Mexican currency. Well, that would make sense with the M, but that's pesos, right? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it converts to $3 US. It's still generous and it's very, very cool. But yeah, I'm interested to know what MX. Maybe it is Mexican. I don't know.
Yeah, it
Uh,
could just be the way that YouTube designates it.
yeah. Chelsea Riley with hello. This one is a real $50 super chat. Wow, this is insanity. Did you get your mic yesterday or today? Everybody wants to know about the mic because everybody
Yeah.
has shared my frustration that I've had over the last few weeks. Also, how do you take care of Africans differently? And are there any techniques you might steal from each other? Taking care of Africans. Okay. So the Okay, and Henry Chavez says, thanks, greetings from Mexico. It is pesos and around $3. See, look, I called that one. But to answer you, Chelsea, I got this microphone along with an identical one for Lisa, and as well as all of the equipment to use these microphones, because these are not microphones that you can just plug into the computer. These, you have to have equipment to run them and all of that. I got it about 2 hours ago. So there's your answer there. And also, how do you take care of Africans differently? That's a good question. I don't know that you and I do things differently. As a matter of fact, I think you and I are very similar in our approach to taking care of Africans, but I'm going to give that to you. What do you do that might be different than what others do when it pertains to your African tanks?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I would suspect that we do things very similarly. Just looking at, I remember watching your older live streams when you had the larger, was it like a 220 or 240 behind you, and you had
What's that? Oh,
that one. Yeah,
you mean way back?
yeah,
Like,
like before you made the comeback, even when you had
oh
like I
yeah, that
remember
was
one
this
point
one. That
that
was
was
this
that one.
tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looked very similar to what I do, and again, Africans is kind of that's a broad term. So if we're talking about Mbuna, I lot of them, right? So I've got a 75 gallon that probably has at least 25 full grown Mbuna to kind of make sure that we don't have any one fish that's getting pounded on. I generally keep the structure actually relatively low in most of my community Mbuna tanks, just because they're not fighting over any one area. Yeah, there are certain fish like Kenii or red zebras that will breed in one particular area, but it seems to work for me. The Lake Tanganyikan fish, that's a different story because they may require shells. They may require rocks. The adult male peacocks, again, that one, and I don't know about what you think, John, but I actually find the adult all-male peacock tank in terms of aggression the most difficult of all the African cichlids to manage. The Mbunas to me are relatively easy. Lake Tanganyikans are easy. But when you get to those all-male peacock tanks, man, those are the ones that are, I think, the most challenging.
I don't disagree. Peacocks, everybody talks about Mbunas being this super aggressive fish, and they certainly can be, but yeah, most of my troublemakers have been peacocks, not Mbunas. But I have had some devil Mbunas before too. But something that I want to touch on that's on this particular topic, I've watched a lot of videos on your channel, and so if you have a video about something like this, and I haven't seen it, I apologize because I haven't seen every single one of your videos. But
Right?
have you ever toured a fish farm, or more specifically, an African cichlid fish farm?
I have not. So we did a lot when I did my master's cert in aquaculture and fish health. There were a lot of videos and information about obviously aquaculture. So we were immersed in that. But to go there in person, I have not been down to Florida or anywhere like that. I mean, I've seen a lot of breeders, but not true fish farms where they're keeping the large, cement tubs and these
Right.
massive structures.
The reason why I ask that is because there is a lot of people that talk about when you get your African cichlid tanks, particularly Malawis, that you have to do these drastic alterations to your tank to achieve very particular water parameters that these fish require. In fact, there was another YouTuber ripping on me a few weeks ago talking about this tank and how I don't do anything to the water parameters, and I've got all these fish that require different water parameters. which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But my whole thing is all but 5 of these fish came from one farm, which is actually in Utah. But you're right. Most of them are from Florida because it's just common sense, tropical climate. It's perfect. But these were from Live Fish Direct. But I have been to an African cichlid farm in Homestead, Florida. It was Old World Exotics. And the thing is, where my argument comes from is all of these fish were bred in the exact same water, and there were no alterations to that water whatsoever. Right. It's a harder water, straight out of the tap, yes, but they are not at the farms putting certain things in place for those vats that contain frontosas, because those are Tanganyikan fish or shell dwellers. They're all in the same water, and they're all spawned and raised in this water. So it hurts my feelings when another YouTuber does it. Like, oh, he's terrible because he doesn't fit the water. I'm like, but you don't understand. These are not wild caught fish. If they were, it still wouldn't make sense because they're all from Lake Malawi. But when you mix Malawis and Tanganyikans, I know there's a lot of people that have a problem with that. And I'm okay. I'm not going to argue with you. But if you're buying them from the same farm, if I was to buy frontosas from Live Fish Direct and put them in here, they were all bred in the same water. So it's just crazy to me. But anyway, I'm going on a little rant there. I don't mean to, but the reason why I brought that up is because she asked like special things. Are there any techniques you might steal from each other? I think we're pretty much like in line with how we do things, but there really isn't a whole lot of special techniques for the particular fish that I'm keeping. Now you have a lot of shell dwellers and stuff like that. So,
well, and even that, and you hit the nail on the head. That's probably one of the things that, I don't know, say irritating, but for instance, sometimes I'll mix cichlids, and I get why that can be a detriment. If I've got maybe some South African or South American and African cichlids together, and often the comments go, they need completely different water parameters. You can't mix those fish. That is not a reason why you can't mix those fish, because I've got 65 fish tanks. You've got a number. You just said it. I don't know a lot of people who buy fish from a store and then go through the trouble of taking a fish tank, and if they've got 5 different tanks, mimicking what they would find in nature. And I've got a Pistos, so they need soft water. I've got Africans here, they need hard water. Some people might do that, but the vast majority don't. And if you think about the way just people generally keep fish, you may have fish from, even if they're just tropical fish, you might have fish from Asia, you might have fish from South America, from Central America, from parts of Australia, and you keep those fish together and their temperaments are great and they're working out great, but most people are not matching those water parameters. There are reasons to keep fish separate. Water parameters, if they're wild fish, absolutely. The thing that concerns me more when you're mixing fish are things like diet, right? If you've got fish that are primarily carnivores and they need a high protein diet, and maybe you were keeping them with maybe mbunas that, you're feeding them bloodworms constantly, they're gonna eventually bloat out and die on you potentially. That's a reason maybe you want to keep them separate. But the water parameter issue, if you're anywhere close to neutral, your pH-wise, you're probably going to be okay. If you're anywhere between 4 degrees and 12 degrees hardness in most fish, maybe even slightly higher or lower, you're probably going to be fine. If you're matching the temperatures anywhere between 75 and 80, you're probably going to be okay with most common tropical fish.
Do you get... my dog is freaking out. I hope it's not coming on microphone. It's driving me crazy. And I don't know if anybody is home to stop her from freaking out. I'm about to step away and find out what's going on. She only usually barks like this when somebody's at the door. But do you get any crap for the tank that you have with the Oscars and the peacocks and the tilapia and all that in it?
Oh, sure. So for those of you who don't know, I got a 125. It was never meant to be that way. You know how things happen in a fish tank where it's like, this is very different than what I expected it was going to look like. So I originally set up a 125, and I set it up. I had 3 Oscars at the time. I put a couple bristlenose plecos in there. And for the most part, that's really what that tank was for. And over time, some fish got added. So for instance, I had a red empress in a tank that was in a peacock tank that was getting beat up. And I figured, you know what, it's probably going to do okay in the Oscar tank. And sure enough, it was fine. They left each other alone. Then I got the Nile tilapia. I had some of those, and I kept one after I sold the rest at an auction. And that thing is now 18 inches. And now I put some females, or actually we had some babies in that tank. I put a female in the tank. It was like an OB, and they started spitting out babies. Now I got OBs everywhere with these red empress mixes, and I've got the Oscar, and I had a geophagus in there at one point. And what was interesting is, not in terms of aggression, the fish more or less ignore each other. In terms of diet, because they're peacocks, I have a little bit more leeway there in terms of diet. They get along fine. They've been in that tank for a long time now, long enough where they're all adults and they've got their situations worked out. And I've never had an issue, not once. I'm not saying people, if they try that mix, are going to be fine. What I'm saying is it worked in that tank, in that situation, in the order in which I added the fish. If you're going to put a 1.5-inch Oscar in with some adult peacocks, that 1.5-inch Oscar is probably going to get annihilated inside of 3 days. But you're talking about a 13-inch Oscar, and then you've got small peacocks that are entering that tank that worked out okay over the last, however long it's been, a year and a half, maybe.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've never done that combination. I think we talked about that tank last time you were on the stream. I've never done that combination, but I can just only imagine what people would say if I did, because good Lord. I mean, I know the comments I get on my video that has your tank in it. They're not negative. They're not negative at all. It's everybody wants to know, what is that big fish? They don't know what the tilapia is.
Yeah.
And I probably should have labeled it with text on the screen in that video, because would have saved some heartache. Henry Chavez comes in again and says, I had an emergency home a Mbuna for 2 weeks in a Tetra community tank, and he never did anything to them. Well, see, now that's something I probably would not, not only would I not recommend that, I wouldn't try it. I mean, sometimes you're in a situation like Henry was in, and it's like, hey, I got to put this fish somewhere. So you take your chances. But yeah, I mean, I've learned, and you're the one that's been schooled in this, but I've learned the rule book can say all kinds of things that don't necessarily, it's not gospel, I mean, I don't know, but listen, I have to go see what my dog's freaking out about. So I'm going to ask this question, and then I'm going to walk away and leave it to you. I have a red top zebra who is a troublemaker, the meanest fish in my 55 gallon, chases all my other fish to one side of the tank. I'm going to let you go with that. I got to see who's at my door, because I feel like that's what's making my dog bark. So I will be right back.
All right. Well, you have fun. Good luck. All right. So red top zebra, who is a troublemaker, the meanest fish in my 55 gallon tank, chases all my other fish to one side of the tank. Yeah, that happens. And so with the 55 gallon tanks, I'm a little leery sometimes about putting peacocks in that size tank, or even Mbuna, unless it's just one species. The thing about it is, if you've got a peacock tank and that fish right now is displaying the dominance and chasing the fish into the corners, the problem may be once you remove that fish, you're thinking, okay, I've removed the bully, everything's going to be okay. Usually what happens in a tank that size, if it's an adult male peacock tank or an Mbuna tank or just an African tank in general, once you remove that dominant fish, within a couple days, there's going to be a new head of that tank who may very well do the same thing. If it's a new mix, you might have to wait and see how it works out, because some fish will eventually work things out, and then maybe they'll have to color down a little bit, or maybe they only inhabit certain parts of the tank. That's a tricky one. One of the things as we're talking that I think I probably want to make clear just for myself is I can make changes if things don't work relatively easily. And so I always have to be careful that when I show something like that 125 where I've got the Oscar mixed with OBs, mixed with a Nile tilapia, it's working. But I can tell you this, if I only had one tank, not in a million years would I do that combination. It just so happened that as the fish room evolved and I'm moving fish around, that worked. But the nice thing, at least for me, is with 65 or now maybe 68 tanks, if something doesn't work, I always have multiple options to figure it out. So for instance, we had a Midas cichlid in the 125, which we named Little Ricky. And he was doing great for a while, and he got rather large, and he wasn't bothering anybody. And all of a sudden, one day, as some Midas cichlids and red devils will do, he turned, and he decided that when it was time to feed, he was going to push the Oscar into the corner. And of course, the Oscar didn't appreciate that, so they started fighting. And I noticed within 6 hours, the Oscar looked like he was going to maybe lose that battle. And quite frankly, that 125 is the Oscar's tank. So little Ricky had to move out of that tank to another tank. But if I only had one fish tank, would I mix those two? I probably wouldn't, just because I know how aggressive Midas cichlids and red devils can be. When you have options, you can move things around. If you've got options and you can move that fish to a different tank, great. If you can't, it might be one of those things where it's like, wow, this 55-gallon with these peacocks or Mbuna, it just might not work out.
I'm back, by the way. It's a cat on my front porch. That's what the dog's barking at.
Yeah. It's probably
Thanks,
time to eat.
Lisa.
That cat's like, where's my food?
Yeah, because Lisa's not here to pet him. To pet him? What? To feed him. I also wanted to thank Brick for the $99. It's got an A in front of it. Maybe Australian? Austrian? Who knows? But either way, it makes no difference. Thank you so much. And that is for a money emoji sticker, which is very, very cute. So yeah, I mean, if you look at this tank long enough, you're going to see my dragon blood is definitely the main fish in this tank. Comes and goes. He can go perfectly fine for a month and not bother anybody, and then just decide he's going to start chasing other fish around, and it's really annoying and it really bothers me. But I had a similar story to yours. I had red devils. 2 red devils with a Oscar, and I had a Gar. They were in a 150-gallon tank, and a Jack Dempsey, and everything was perfectly fine in that tank for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, boom, we come in, and that Oscar was on his side on the bottom of the tank.
Yep.
The sides of his body looked like they were filleted. He didn't die, and Lisa actually saved him. There's videos of that on my channel from like 6 years ago. So we were able to get him to pull through, but that, you can do things. It might work for me and not work for you, or the other way around, or it might work for a little while and then you wake up one day and it's not working anymore.
Yep.
And that's, it just is what it is. Jordan Curtis came in with the $2 super chat. Should I add my extra sub filter when I have ick? You're the expert, but I'm going to say no. I'm not adding anything to the tank if I'm treating for ick. But what's your thoughts? I'm not sure what a sub filter is, but
yeah. Well, so when it comes to any filtration, it's, if you're just doing it to increase the oxygen concentration, maybe have the more surface agitation, that's really the idea, I think. But if just adding filtration, especially if the media is not cycled, I don't think that's really going to do much. I just did a really long, comprehensive video on ick
very good,
last week or the week before. I don't remember. But the big thing is you follow the directions on the ick meds. Obviously, I talked about the benefits of adding salt, increasing temperature. But in terms of extra filtration, I probably wouldn't worry about it. Just make sure you've got surface agitation, maybe an air stone in there, just to make sure that your oxygen concentrations are up, because that ick is gonna have an impact on the gills. If you're turning the temperatures up, that's going to decrease the amount of dissolved oxygen in the water. So it might be good for that.
And maybe that's exactly what he was asking for.
Yeah.
So yeah, good. I knew you'd have a good answer for that. Aquaterra, this is not from the chat. This is from the post that I put up on YouTube, and there's a few more in there too. But Ken, this has a bad word in it.
Uh-oh.
It's after 8 o'clock. It's not a real bad word. It's just a word you don't typically see when talking about fish. Can peacock cichlid females store sperm after having their first batch of fry? Because I have yet again a holding female with eggs while I have separated her after I stripped the fry a while ago. I'm confused. I'm going to run with that, and then I'm going to let you take it. I have seen in my experience with breeding Africans, which we did professionally for years, the females, if you strip them, and then obviously if you're stripping them, you're going to take the female away from the eggs that you're going to tumble in an egg tumbler. Pretty much the instant that female hits the water, she's already starting to process again. Okay, it's time to do that again. And so it's not uncommon. We would actually be really happy when this would happen because we were raising the fry and selling them. It's not uncommon for you to have a holding female and then strip those fry after a couple of weeks. Her cycle's up again. You put her in the water, she's ready to go, and she spawns again. We didn't typically like that because they go through so much. If they've had the eggs for a couple of weeks, they get very skinny and they're, but it's good as far as getting the most fry as possible. But we didn't like what that did to the females. But that's not uncommon at all to see that. You just got a slut.
Yeah.
That's what your fish is.
Yeah. And just like you, we try to be really careful with that. So what I typically do with any mouth brooding fish is I often will remove the holding female, put her in a 10-gallon tank, let her kind of sulk behind a sponge filter. Because they really, if you notice, when they're holding, they want to be away from everyone anyway. They're stressed out. They're not eating. They're getting weak. So I'll usually remove the female, let her spit the fry out in a 10-gallon. And then what I do often to prevent what you're saying is leave her in the tank with the fry for at least a couple weeks, and then she'll start to eat. Once she's starting to eat, because even when she first spits the fry out, she's in protect mode, and she's often not going to eat even a week or two after that. So once she's back on food with the fry, then I will put her back in the tank, just so it doesn't happen. Because you're right, John. When you get those females who are just constantly holding, they're going to eventually die. You will burn them out if they're allowed to just constantly reproduce, because they will do that. You'll get aggressive males who are in there, and as long as she can produce, has the nutrients to produce the eggs, she will, and that's just sucking the nutrients right out of her body. So way to prevent that is give them their own space. Let them spit out the fry. Let them hang out with them. Feed them like crazy. Get them back up to size. Then put them back in the tank.
Well, and when it comes to breeding African cichlids from a hobby standpoint, I think the most fun strategy is to let it happen naturally. I don't mean let the fry get spit in the community tank. I mean exactly what you were talking about. Take that female out, put her isolate her so that she can be stress-free. And we actually had like nursery tanks where we painted the sides and the back.
So
that there was no cross the tank aggression or anything, and just let them sit there. And it's fun to watch. And you have that anticipation, like any day now she's going to spit the fry. And one of the coolest thing I've ever observed when it comes to breeding fish is the female spitting this massive brood of fry out, and they're swimming around and they're brand new and you can see them exploring, and then something spooks her and they all go back in. That's one of the coolest things I've ever witnessed. I never got it on video, but to have them all go back into her mouth is one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen.
I totally agree with you. And that was a really good point you brought up, because we do that with our 10-gallon fry tanks as well. As we paint them on 3 sides, the back and both sides, because you really do want them to feel secure. That was an awesome point, is if you can do that with your holding tanks, that's the best way.
We had 27 10-gallon tanks that were either like a tank for the mother, because we did strip a lot of females, but we had some that we were just struggling with, and so we would take the female out and not strip her and put them in there. And so we had all 3 painted on there. 27 10-gallon tanks that we had that way. It takes 2 minutes to paint the sides. It's no big deal. And it worked out really well. And if I was doing this for fun, which I'm not breeding fish at all right now, but if I was, and I was doing it just for fun, that's exactly how I would do it. When you're taking it to the next level and you're trying to produce as many fry as possible so that you can raise them up and sell them and profit, then stripping the females is what makes the most sense because the whole idea is you strip the fry out. It doesn't impact the mother as much if you're stripping them after like a week. She's, a week and a half or so later, she's back up to speed, feeling good again, because she wasn't going without eating for 3 weeks. So that would be the cycle happens faster. You strip the fry after 5 or 6 days, she recuperates really fast, and within a couple of weeks she's holding again. But if you're doing it for fun, there's no reason to produce hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fry. Just let it happen naturally and watch the fry all go back into her mouth. It's the coolest thing. Kaler's Aquatics with $10 says longtime supporter and student of both of you. Be his student. Don't be mine. Enjoying the exchange of knowledge. Great stream. Bob Kaler is such a cool guy. And I feel like I know the guy. I've never met him in person. He could walk in the room right now. I wouldn't know it's him. I've said
he's
that
awesome.
before about other YouTubers, and I've gotten in trouble for saying that. But
well, I look at the list of everybody who's watching. So many awesome people, so many people committed to the hobby, constantly leaving comments on my channel, and I just that's something I so love about YouTube. I know you do too, John. We've talked about it before. A lot of the reason why we do this is so that we can interact with people, and there's so many people who are committed where I see so many familiar names, and it's fun when you get the comments from the people. You feel like you know them really well. And then if you're watching and you've never had an opportunity to go to an aquatic experience or go to an aquashella, and I know you were super excited about it this last year, and so was I. When we get to meet you guys in person, that's the reason why I go, and it's so exciting.
Yeah, we tried so hard, you and I, to have like YouTube conversations and stuff, but we couldn't do it because as soon as we get into something, boom, somebody would walk up. It's the two bald guys, and but you're absolutely right. It's so much fun. I love it for both the interaction with subscribers and viewers. I don't like calling them fans because that just makes me feel weird. But and then also having that interaction with other YouTubers, because you've got Kasha that lives close to you.
Right.
And then of course you've got your wife. With me and Lisa, we don't have anybody that lives close to us that I don't know how much you see Kasha, but we don't have anybody that's going to come over and be like, hey, let's talk about fish and let's talk about YouTube. So that's our only opportunity to get time with other YouTubers. And I am someone that I love this YouTube thing at such a unhealthy level because I obsess over it so much. And when I have the opportunity to speak to people that have that same love for it, not only the fish keeping hobby, but the YouTube side of it, it's a beautiful thing.
It sure is.
I've said it before. I would love to do like an event for YouTubers only, and not just like, if you don't have a YouTube channel with this many subscribers, you can't come. I don't mean something like that. I mean, it's a YouTuber thing. I would love to do something like that with just fish tubers, but nobody would come to something like that. But that'd be fun. Just because I love that interaction of talking about YouTube and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't even know why I'm talking about all that. It's so much fun. But you and I and our better halves and JH and Amber, I can see the table right now. We all went out to dinner that night. Yeah. And we spent a couple hours there, and then I bailed and went outside, and then me and Corey spent a couple hours sitting outside just talking YouTube and talking all this. Those are like super special moments for me. I absolutely love it. And I'm always sad when it ends, and I know I got to wait 6 months or 7 months to do it again. But it was such a pleasant experience because Bob Steenfott wasn't there. That's why.
Spreading his poop emojis everywhere. I just said that on a live stream. Can you say that word? And
how dare you speak such foul language on my stream? Ginger Graves with the $10 pair Superman. That's cute. She must know that I'm a superhero fan. And then Bob comes in with the 99 cents with a big old piece of poop. My daughter has I'm not even going to tell the story. She's got one of the iPhones where she can send me a text of emojis talking, and I've seen those. Yeah, he sent me one of those yesterday with a poop emoji, and it was absolutely hilarious. So thank you for the piece of poop, Bob, and thank you, Ginger Graves. Did I miss any? I hope I didn't. No, I mentioned Brick for Brick. Yeah, I think I'm caught up on the super chats. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay,
I'm going to put you on the spot. I was thinking about this the other day.
Oh, wow. You've had 2 days to think about this?
Oh, yeah. It's been processing.
Okay.
You are one of the few, I didn't do this. You're one of the few YouTubers, and I could probably name all of the other ones that went to all 3 of the big shows last year, right? You went to both Aquashellas.
Yep.
If you could only... No, see, I can't ask you this. I just realized you live 20 minutes from one of them. Okay, let's pretend let's pretend you don't live 20 minutes from Aquashella. Okay.
All right.
If you could only pick one, which one would you go to?
Wow, that is putting me on the spot. They're awesome for different reasons. Aquashella is really dialed in what they do for, I think, people, just your average hobbyist coming in. They've got so much to do for kids. They've got so much going on for just adults, the feel, the vibe, the music, the lights, all that stuff. They bring in a lot of, YouTubers to kind of hang out and meet people. And it really is kind of like a fish party. Mm-hmm. Right. And then you've got the aquatic experience where I was reminded when we were there, it's like, oh my gosh, there is so much to see here in terms of display tanks, and they've got all the competition tanks, which I really love.
You
I
don't
would
have
say
to pick.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I really enjoyed Aquashella because of the number of viewers that came to both Dallas and Chicago. And so, like I said, I'm there to hang out with the people who love fish. And so when we've got a table and there's people everywhere and they're hanging out and they're talking fish, that excites me far more than anything else. And so I would pick whatever place is going to have the opportunity to hang out with the most people.
Well, and he's not telling a story here either, folks, because I tried kicking him out of the YouTube booth at the Aquatic Experience multiple times. I would walk up there and say, Jason, you've been here all day. You don't have to be here. Go enjoy yourself. Go walk around. He's like, nope, this is what I'm here for. And that is awesome. I mean, it kind of makes me look bad because I'm like, this isn't any fun here at the YouTube booth. You go away. That's not what I meant by it. It was like, you're dedicated to being there for the people that want to talk fish and all that. And I love that. I mean, that's awesome. But it's like, come on, man, walk around a little bit. It's like you're working, and I didn't want you to feel like you were working.
No.
But,
and you were there the vast majority of the time too. So don't make it sound like, oh yeah, I just wandered around the whole thing. No, you were there the vast majority of the time.
I mean, it's because you were there, Oh. We got so much in common. We can sit there and talk, but we never got a chance to talk because every time we would start, people would come up. But that's what after the show is for. And that's the only thing I've ever said about those shows is that it's just not enough time.
Yeah.
Like, because I want to have that, the time at the show with the people, which I love, and then have that time afterwards where it's all of us and we're talking shop and stuff like that. There's just never enough time. It's like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't get to spend time with that person, But
what would be really cool, and I know we've toyed with the idea at various times, what I think would be awesome is after the show is you have a banquet hall just kind of rented out. It'd be so hard to coordinate it, but to have it open to anybody who wants to come, whether you're a YouTuber, whether you're just a viewer or someone who likes to talk fish, and just have a big thing where everybody just kind of hangs out and eats and just that would be really fun. At some point,
it is hard because you have your group that likes to go out and have a good time after those events.
Sure.
I'm not one of those guys. To me, a good time is sitting in a corner somewhere talking, having a nice conversation. I'm not an alcohol drinker. I'm not anything like that. So the idea of let's go out for a night on the town is a horror show for me. I don't want to do that. So it would be hard, but I totally agree. I think that would be awesome to do that. We kind of did that at Aquashella, which you would have gone home, but the hotel had like a bar and there was like a party room. And I walked down there. It was like 11 o'clock. I walked down there and there was a bunch of YouTubers in there that were talking, whatever. So that was a lot of fun. And that's where I became friends with Fishy Biz. And now I can't get rid of that guy. He's giving me a hard time all the time and coming on my live stream and trolling me. And he's a good dude. So you're not going to pick one and that's fine. What are your plans for next year? Obviously you're going to be at Chicago Aquashella. If you're not, I would be shocked by that. Are you planning on doing both of the others again?
So my plan right now is actually my plan is to go to the OCA. This was at 2 weeks from now, so I think both Kasha and I are headed down there or to Cleveland area to do that. And then I think after that, yeah, you've got Dallas Aquashella coming up, and I don't know if those dates have been released yet.
I don't think so.
I haven't looked, but yeah, my plan is to at least try to do the three majors, and that is the two Aquashellas, the Aquatic Experience next year, hopefully, and then we'll kind of go from there and see if there's other things we can attend as well.
Yeah, I mean, I I didn't think we were going to get to any of the Aquashellas last year, and Fritz Aquatics kind of changed our mind on that, and custom aquariums. We kind of got lucky there. But if I had my way, I'd go to all three of them too. I mean, because obviously Aquashell or the Aquatic Experience is not as close to us as Aquashella is to you, but
Right.
it's driving distance, so we
Sure.
can't miss that one. And Dallas, as much as I hate the Dallas Cowboys and people that are fans of that team, I'll probably still. I mean, we're going to try to do all three, and then
Yeah.
I think
Good.
other than that, we're going to try to do the big fish deal too, because that's like an hour from us. So
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Eric Furlow with the $2 says, "So glad I found both y'all's channels. Learned a lot. That's awesome."
Awesome. Very cool.
And Allie Patton is saying good night for the night. We will miss her. She is a
Yeah.
doll baby.
Oh yeah.
Let's see what else we got going on in here. A lot of people saying hi to a lot of people. Not a whole lot of questions coming through. So we can talk about something that is another thing I thought about.
Oh boy.
It's not controversial. Don't worry. I'm not
Okay.
going to get you
All
in any
right.
trouble. There is a very common question that's asked to me, and it was asked to me a lot at the fish store when I had one. And I wanted to get your take on this because you and I, when it comes to fish food, we also see eye to eye. The best food for your fish is the food your fish will eat. But what do you say to people that come to you and say, I'm going to preface this by saying somebody comes to you and says, I just bought a new something or other, and I've had it for a week and it hasn't eaten yet. What is your response to that? Who cares what kind of fish it is? I bought it a week ago and it hasn't eaten yet. What should I do? What is your response?
So you bought the new food or the new fish a
The
week
new
ago?
fish.
Oh, the new fish. Well, it kind of sort of depends on the fish and the setup. So one, it could be sick, right? Two, it might just be stressed out. So I have found unless the fish are really, really active, if they're just kind of hiding in a corner or they're, stuck behind a plant somewhere, I'm probably not even going to bother trying to feed them that first day that they're here. First of all, most fish, if they're healthy and they have been eating, they're not going to starve to death in a couple of days. I've had fish that stop eating for 2 or 3 weeks. We just talked about holding females that are, as long as they're healthy, they'll go easily 3-4 weeks without eating between holding the eggs, incubating the fry, and then protecting the fry. They're too stressed out to eat, and they're on their protection game. They might go a month. I've got a Raphael cat that will literally go months without eating. He'll gorge himself for a few months, and then he will sit under a log. And the first time he did it, I thought he was going to die. But if it's a new fish, I'm looking for, one, is he stressed out? Or is the fish stressed out? Is it still getting used to the environment? Is it still hiding a lot? It's probably not coming out for food. Two, when it comes to fish food in particular, if you just switch the foods and they're not eating, and they were eaten before, then go back to what you were feeding. A lot of people try to force food on fish, like, well, I heard this is the best and it's going to make them awesome and super colorful. And you throw that in there and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to keep throwing it in there. Now, some people will let the fish not starve to death, but get to a point where they're so hungry they eat it. But if they're not going to eat that food after, a week or two, they're probably not going to eat it, because there are some fish that I've got certain fish, I can throw food sticks in that tank all day long and they're going to let it go to the bottom and it's going to rot, right? So if it's new fish, make sure it's not stressed. If it's not stressed, make sure it's not sick, right? A lot of times when they've got ick or they've got a parasite, they're not going to eat. And so you're looking for signs of disease as well. But fish food in general, they need to be able to eat it. That's step one.
I had this scenario in my fish store, and I've told this story 100 times to 100 people. Guy comes in. He says, I bought a fish from you 2 weeks ago and it just died. And I said, oh, well, we'll take care of you. We got to figure it out. What happened? Well, he never ate. I said, okay. When I put him in the tank, I first got him, I fed him, and he wouldn't eat. I was like, okay, well, that doesn't alarm me because he just went through that stress, Yeah. And so the next day, I fed him again, and he didn't eat. And like 3 or 4 days, I was throwing food in every day, and he wasn't eating. And then this was he moved the fish into a tank by himself to make it less stressful. Okay, so I forgot to add that part. After 2 days, he wasn't eating with all of the other fish, so he moved him into a tank by himself, and he fed him for like 3 or 4 days, and the fish never ate. And then he said, well, maybe it's the food. Went and bought new food. He's telling me all of this, and I'm just sitting there going, I see where this is going. Okay, go ahead. I went and bought this other food, and I was feeding him every day, and he wasn't eating the food. And he's in a tank by himself, so I would have seen him if he was eating, but he's not eating. Okay? And then we get to 2 weeks. You've been throwing food in this tank every day, a 10-gallon tank, hasn't eaten any of it. And you're wondering, I didn't say it this mean to him, but you're wondering why that fish died. Well, how much maintenance have you done on the tank? Well, I haven't maintained it because I didn't want to stress the fish out. Okay, so what you've done is you've isolated a fish into a smaller body of water. You're constantly throwing food in there, which is then rotting because the fish isn't eating. And I'm surprised it made it 2 weeks, So we kind of figured all of that out. And the good thing about it, I explained it to him in a very nice way. In a nutshell, I told him, you basically poisoned this fish because you're throwing food in there. He's not eating it. That food's rotting. Small tank. The ammonia probably spiked up in no time at all. And so you inadvertently killed your fish. And he was like, oh man, he didn't put up an argument. He was like, you know what? I'm not even going to let you give me another fish. I'm going to buy another fish. He felt bad about it. And he was like, so what would you have done if you were me then? I would have said, I don't disagree with taking the fish out and putting it in a tank by itself. I don't think that's a bad thing, but I would not have tried to force it like that. And I'm certainly not going to keep throwing food and piling it in there. If I'm putting food in and he's not immediately going for it, I'm pulling that food back out.
Right.
And he's like, okay. And we never had any other fish die from him again. But that's the whole biggest thing. I mean, when people come to me through the comment section and they say, I just bought a new fish, I've had it for 3 days and it hasn't eaten. I'm like, don't panic. It's okay. They're not going to starve in 3 days. I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of panic in this hobby, and I get it. I used to panic too back in the old days before I knew anything. Still don't know a whole lot, but there's a lot of panic and there's a lot of overkill in this hobby. That's for sure. Zen Ginger asked, OMG, John, is that your new pleco? It's so pretty. No, I've actually had that pleco for over a year. I just moved it from this tank to this one. And he's swimming around somewhere. I've seen him go by a couple of times. Yeah, he's very active. He was a typical common pleco before where he would just sit in one spot all day, but he's been very active the last few days. So it's just a common pleco in there. He's probably 7 or 8 inches now. So any tips or tricks on breeding German blue rams? That is a fish I've never bred before. So
I've bred Bolivians, but not the German blues. We talk about water parameters and how often, at least in terms of keeping fish, as long as you're within an acceptable range, that's usually going to be okay. The exception to that, of course, is when you're trying to breed certain fish, they may need specific water parameters for breeding. So you might be able to keep neon tetras at a pH of, upper 7s or 8. But if you want to breed them, maybe you've got to lower the pH and lower the water hardness. And I found with the German blue rams, they really don't like my water. So that's one of those things. I know we just spent like 25 minutes. How about, okay, water parameters? Yeah, just, make sure they're consistent. For me, I usually have pretty bad luck with German blues. Breeding them, from the people that I've talked to in the clubs that I belong to that breed them, they generally do try to keep that pH a little bit lower than what we have in Chicago water, which is like an 8.2. So maybe they're closer to a 7 or a 6.8, and they try to soften that water up by adding RO. Because again, for us, we've got relatively hard water at 10 to 12 degrees hardness. And so maybe you're trying to get that down there in the 5 to 6 degrees and even that. But yeah, even the Bolivian rams I have no problem with, but the German blues, at least for me, and maybe it's part of its genetics too. You buy them sometimes at, certain pet stores and they're getting them mass produced, and maybe the genetics aren't the best in certain, for certain stores and certain locations for certain breeders, but softer water, a pH that's probably 7 or a little bit less, you might have better luck if you're not already there.
I've heard of German blue rams being notoriously one of those difficult fish to breed.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I haven't messed with them. I love German blue rams, but I've never tried to breed them.
Right.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you some personal stuff.
All right.
Because I want to get to know Jason. Not the professor, not the fish guy. I want to get to know Jason.
All right, here we go.
Favorite superhero?
Oh, that's easy. Iron Man.
Oh, I like that.
My most unfavorite, and this is, watch now, everybody's going to be mad, but my most unfavorite thing of all superhero movies I've ever seen is when Iron Man and Captain America get into a battle. And I just keep thinking, Iron Man, all you have to do is fly up about 20 feet, drop a Jericho bomb on Captain America's head. Now, I like Captain America. Please don't get me wrong. I'm just saying the fight scene to me was a bit unrealistic, because I think if he had just flown up a little higher and started dropping bombs on his head from his little, hand wrist rocket things, the fight would have been over in a hurry. But I love Iron Man.
I love Iron Man too, and he's a super smart guy. You're a super smart guy, so that makes sense that you would like him. But I think it's kind of like Superman. Superman is a god. Or Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan is another great example. The guy, we're sitting here talking like they're real people, but could do anything. Superman could do anything.
Yeah.
You have to be able to allow there to at least be a fight.
I agree with you.
I'm on a Dr. Manhattan kick. I'm a huge Watchmen guy, and I absolutely love Dr. Manhattan. And sometimes these superheroes are too overpowered and they could do anything. You have to be able to slow them down and give them some vulnerability. So
that's always been the problem for me with the DC comics, is once Superman gets into the picture, all the rest of the heroes are completely and wholly unnecessary. It's like, Superman can just do it all at that point.
But at the same time, at the end of Justice League, when he showed up, and you saw that little smirk on his face, like, this is nothing. I loved that. I loved that part of the movie. But my favorite superhero right now is different than it was 6 months ago. I'm on a Watchmen kick right now, and I think I'm going to go with Rorschach. I feel a connection with Rorschach, even though he's dead. Spoiler alert. That I'm a Rorschach guy right now, but. Plus, HBO has that new series out on Watchmen, which is really cool.
Although I will say Scarlet Witch and the Marvel superheroes, man, she's got a ton of power too. I think potential-wise, in terms of being like the ultimate, she's got to be pretty close, where she just tears things apart and lifts up gigantic objects and shoots flaming clouds out of her. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, the movies have not done her. They've done good things for her, but they haven't done her justice. She's a lot more powerful than they make out. Daddy Cool became a member, and then somebody. Welcome to the team, Dr. Cool. Let's see here. I had a company.
We actually have a question.
What's that?
We actually have a question in here.
There's a few questions that I wanted to jump on here. So we keep talking about superheroes. Everybody's just going to leave. I had company and missed about 20 minutes. Did you ask my question regarding Jason's bucket list fish? I'll just see it on replay. Just curious. We did not ask you about bucket list fish, so that's a good question, though.
It is a great question. So one of my favorite all-time fish, and it was a horribly set up tank. I remember having a 35-gallon hexagon back in my late teens, and in that tank I had a bunch of fish which I would never keep together in that size tank again. I had a Jack Dempsey in there. I had a gourami. I think at one point I had a convict, but the coolest fish I'd ever had was a purple spot goby. And the thing was amazing. He was probably about 5 or 6 inches long, and his head was big, and he had this gigantic mouth. And I would feed bloodworms, and at the time I think I was feeding like guppies or something. And this fish with these tiny little eyes and this gigantic mouth, and the colors on this fish were purple. He had like these orange, like the side to his body, and it was just one of the coolest fish I've ever had in my life. I've seen him a couple of times. They're not like really super rare. The few times I've seen them, they were pretty expensive, but I would like to breed those fish. So the purple spot gobies are one of my favorites. And then one fish that I currently don't have, but it's relatively common. I really like the species 44 from Lake Victoria. It's a cichlid that I like quite a bit, but that purple spot goby is the one. It's not glamorous or anything. It's not like, yes, I would like to keep this $40,000 arowana or something like that. But they're cool fish. Next time I find them, I've got to jump on them.
See, that's really cool because I like to play this game of like fantasies that could actually be a reality. Like,
yeah,
I don't like to have the conversation of, well, if I won the lottery, this is what I would do, because that's unrealistic. So like right now, my bucket list fish has always been and always will be a super red arowana, but that's unrealistic because it's not legal to have it. So, you could have said the same thing, but the fact that you brought up a fish that you actually could get, you might have to look hard for it, but you could get, that's cool. I'm glad you did it that way because my bucket list fish is impossible.
There's another one too. I had a picture one time. I actually saw these fish at a pet store up in the Milwaukee area. It was a cichlid. It was a red pike cichlid. And it was, oh my gosh, it was the most amazing, solid, like deep red color. I've got it on one of my fish store tour videos that I did, but that's another one. It was pretty expensive. In fact, the fish wasn't even for sale when I was there because they were bringing it to a cichlid show, but that would be another one. If I could breed those, it would be awesome.
Nice. Possible reason why a male guppy would constantly follow and annoy the same female guppy, even with 2 other females in the tank.
It's how can you ever explain what men are doing? I mean, really, sometimes you just wonder. You're like, hey, you've got all these options. What's with her? He's in love. Your male guppy is in love, and there is nothing you can do about it. No, they do that. I mean, they have a preference. Why that is, I don't think I can intelligibly answer. But they will harass females and harass them and chase certain ones around. Maybe that one's sending off certain hormones in the water that tells the male that she's ready to breed more than the others, or more receptive, or maybe she's a little slower than the other ones or less aggressive at getting away. Yeah.
Well, and he just commented, she is hot. I'll give her that. So that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I would have explained it the exact same way. It's like, you know what? Sometimes they get fixated on one and they're just going to constantly harass that one. If you really want him to attach himself to another one, take that female that he's chasing out, put it in another tank and let him attach himself to one of the other females. But as long as he's not hurting her, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
This is another good one that this one's going to be for the professor. Can erythromycin interrupt a cycle in my tank? That is from our good friend River Life.
It could. There's a potential there. At the levels at which they are typically used, if you've got a really established tank, it probably won't. It also depends on how long you're using the antibiotic. You're probably going to be okay, but I would definitely check. I mean, anytime I'm using meds, and it was something I talked about when I did the ick video, the ick medications that I use, like the malachite green and the copper safe, they haven't been scientifically shown to do a whole lot, in terms of damaging the microbes that contribute to the nitrogen cycle, or at least the nitrification process. But I still check. And make sure. If I'm using an antibiotic, like I used levamisole, I had an internal parasite, and I used that as part of a larger treatment regimen along with some general cure. And when I did that, I was almost daily checking ammonia and nitrites, just because I don't want to be caught off guard. So it certainly can't hurt when you're using antibiotics to just double check those things.
Which, I mean, Rack, we know he's checking anyway.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm surprised nobody has commented on the Rorschach thing. Does nobody know who Rorschach is or something? I mean,
when you said that, isn't that The hold on, it was an old show, right? The Welcome Back, Kotter or
Oh,
something.
no. Well, yeah, that was Horshack. I'm
Oh,
talking about Rorschach. Horshack is the guy that did this, isn't it? Wasn't that it? Or
I don't
anyway,
know. I barely remember the show. I was a youngling.
yeah, it's Zen Ginger got it. It's the he's basically a almost like a Batman. He's from the Watchmen universe, which is completely separate from everything else. And he's just a like a detective vigilante that wears a mask that has ink blots all over it, and they're constantly moving all over the place. And a lot of people don't like him because he kills people,
Oh,
and that's supposed to
well,
be not a superhero thing. But I like him. I like the Punisher. I like the ones who actually do kill people. But anyway, it's a movie. It's not real. He's not really going out killing people. So, but anyway,
how do you
I kind of
know?
thought people would reject that. Like, how dare you be a fan of Rorschach? And then nobody even made any comments about it. It makes me
No.
very sad. Uh, I really want to buy a flower horn, but I don't know what you can put with it. I'm new to the hobby. There's a reason why almost every flower horn tank only has a flower horn in it. That's all I'm going to say. You want to
Somebody's
add
gonna
to that?
die. Yeah, usually with a flower horn, if you mix it with something, there's going to be a dead fish at some point. And they're really, if you really want to see their awesome personality, well, often the reason why people get them is because they have this great personality. They're kind of like water dogs. The best way to see that is when they're in a tank on their own, and that's so you get their personality coming out, and then you don't have to worry about either that fish getting picked on or your flower horn killing something else. Because the last thing you want is, even if you've got an aggressive fish that can hold its own with the flower horn, you're going to start getting fin nipping, and the fish just aren't going to look their best.
I have two electric blue Akari. I think he's
Electric
Akari
blue
is what he's trying to
taurus.
say. Very picky eaters. Any suggestions? I've tried bloodworms, spirulina, tropical flakes.
If the I guess the follow-up question to that would be, are the bloodworms frozen or freeze-dried? I'm assuming they're frozen, but usually, my goodness, when fish refuse frozen bloodworms, that's somewhat unusual. If they're really small still, I'm talking like an inch or so, you could try to switch to live baby brine. At an inch, they'd probably still eat that. But if they're anywhere close to full size, you're just wasting live baby brine at that point for that particular fish. But yeah, my goodness, frozen bloodworms for me. I mean, most fish go after that. Now, it also depends. Again, we were just talking about fish that don't eat. Did you just put them in the tank? Did you just, is the tank a new setup? Is there any issues with ammonia or nitrites? Are there any fish that are bullying them where it would make them afraid to come out and eat? I don't know, John, you got any other ideas?
No, I mean that's there's a reason why I turned it over to you, because I knew you were going to answer it exactly the same way I would. I mean, it's rare to find any fish that will turn down frozen bloodworms. I
Yeah.
mean, so that was the first thing I wanted to know too. Was it freeze dried bloodworms? Because I've had fish reject those, or
Yeah.
is it frozen ones? Um, but don't make the mistake of buying 25 different fish foods and keep throwing it in and not do your maintenance. I mean, if you want to go to extremes, if you have a store that has blackworms, live blackworms available, those are hard to find and they're a pain in the butt. About maybe not as much a pain in the butt as live brine shrimp, but I mean, I used to have the cups in the refrigerator
Uh-huh.
and all of that garbage, and that was just such a huge pain. Uh, but yeah, I don't know what more I
Well,
can really add to that.
and I guess the other thing too is if they're newer fish and they're not eating, you've tried all these things and you can't get them on food, then sometimes, and they're not being stressed out, they're not being bullied, the water parameters are fine. You might want to start looking at internal issues as well. Maybe it's a bacterial infection, some type of parasite, because then that'd be another really good reason why they'd go off food. I've been dealing with that. I've dealt with that in my 125, lost a couple of groups of geos because of an internal parasite where they ate for a little while and then they stopped. And there were, I could not clear that internal parasite. I finally got the tank in order, but it's something to consider if you start seeing them get skinny. So they're not eating, they're getting skinny, and you've tried everything at that point, you could have other issues going on there internally.
This one's got me a little confused because it's going back to the superheroes. Melissa Jeswald says, Marvel, any questions? Visit me on Quora. I'm a MCU top writer. Love
Ah,
Watchmen too. I'm not sure what that means, but
sounds important.
it does. It sounds like somebody that I'd like to have a conversation with. Flower horns are generally a species only type tank fit. Yep. Um, so how do you breed flower horns? Just introduce female temporarily. That one I don't know. I don't know if you know anything about that.
I have not bred them. I for some of the stuff you just hear things in the clubs who people who try to breed flower horns, and yeah, they introduce the female after she's at breeding age, watch them like a hawk, and as soon as they breed, remove the male at that point.
Marvel fan here. Batman and Green Lantern is about the extent of my DC knowledge. Oh, well, open yourself up to Watchmen. It's a very, very, very cool thing. It's one of the most successful, or it is the most successful graphic novels of all time. And I think it's actually in the top 100 novels of all time, all genres. So, seriously, um, check out Watchmen or just watch the movie. The movie is very much like uh, the graphic novel. Great, great movie. The new series on HBO, I don't know. I'm still a little leery on that. But do you have HBO, Jason?
I no, not only do I not have HBO, we haven't had cable in I don't know, it's probably been 13 years. And then we had, we got Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. Then I got tired of Netflix. I'm like, my gosh, Netflix is for me becoming like cable was back in the day where I'm sitting there, you find yourself, it's been 20 minutes. I still haven't found something I want to watch.
Yes.
So I finally got rid of Netflix. Now I've just
Oh,
got
wow.
Hulu and Amazon Prime. I don't find myself watching a lot of TV of any kind, really. So,
Well,
I
I don't watch HBO. I don't have HBO on cable. I've got an HBO subscription just like Netflix, where it's
okay,
on my computer, on my phone, whatever.
yeah.
And they have a new series based on The Watchmen, um, which is, it would kind of be like if they came out with an Avengers show and there's no
Uh,
Captain America, there's no Iron Man, there's no Thor, there's no Hulk. It's all new characters 30 years into the future. And it's like, I don't know, and it's very, very political. So I don't know. But the original Watchmen was very political too.
yeah.
But the show, I don't hate it. I, I don't know how much I love it yet though. But it's got Ozymandias in it, which is pretty cool. And they did make references to Dr. Manhattan. So I don't know. It might be a good show. It's so weird with the bloodworm allergy thing. I don't remember it being a thing years ago. I've never known it to be a thing, but apparently it is a thing. I don't know if
Oh,
you know more about that than me.
it's definitely a thing. I know a couple people who are actually allergic to bloodworms, and they said when they touch them, I think they said their fingers started to itch or tingle or something like that. So they can't feed them.
Yeah, that's
So
wild.
it's yeah.
Cora is a Q&A site. Come say hi. There's a fish area too. Okay. I can't do that though, Melissa. I can't do it because I will, I'll never get up. I have a hard enough time already separating myself from my computer because of the obsession with YouTube. I feel like if I found something like that on superheroes, it would just be the end of me.
Yep. Like what happened to KG Tropicals? He used to post all the time. Well, no, it was that website, and now
Yeah.
he's done for a while,
Somebody
taking a
started talking
break.
to him about
Yeah,
Dr. Manhattan, and next thing you know,
yeah,
Jason, oh, this is a great question. And of course, it's from Rack.
yeah.
What is your favorite size aquarium? I got that question last week.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
great question.
Well, I guess it depends on what your. I always have these caveats, what your goals are. But if I could only keep one size tank, like reasonable, right? I could say my favorite size is 5,000 gallons. Okay, that's great, but can't fit that through the front door. So if we're talking about standard size tanks, and we're balancing cost versus the flexibility you have. I really like 40 breeders. I love that 18 inches. You got the 36 inches by 18 inches, so you got a lot of area there for a lot of breeding and keeping fish. I like the depth of that tank a lot as well. Maybe I prefer a 40 even more than a 55, even though you're getting an extra 15 gallons with the 55. So that is definitely, if we're balancing everything, like making it an affordable tank that's relatively easy to care for, I think that's like the perfect size that anybody could enjoy.
My response to that question last week was a bit more extreme than yours, but still not outrageous. I said 125 gallons
Yep, that's awesome too.
because you can do so much with that tank. You can do big cichlids, you can do a
Yep.
planted community tank, you can do discus, goldfish, tetras. If anybody's wondering what I'm doing over here because I'm making a weird motion, I'm petting the cat. See his tail? It's right here. Um, they're so versatile. I mean, you can do literally anything. I mean, maybe you can't keep arapaima in there or pacu, but there you can have a Oscars. There's so much you can do with a 125. So if I had to go down to only one, that's what it would be, because the opportunities are endless with that fish. So
Yeah.
with
It's a
that
good
fish,
question
with
right
that
here.
tank,
Ginger asks, would crushed coral be too sharp for Corydoras? I'd rather sprinkle it in my substrate than bag it, but I don't want to hurt my cories. So if I were doing crushed coral, I actually would probably put it in a bag. I mean, it's relatively easy. I know it might, if you got a canister filter, maybe it's not so easy, but with a hang on back, I would just put some, first of all, because you're going to get a greater change in your water hardness if you put the crushed coral in a filter bag. Now, it's of course that crushed coral is going to deplete a little faster in a filter, but I would prefer to do that because, yeah, some of that stuff is pretty sharp, and it's not so much. I always said the barbels are going to get destroyed, but really just the underbelly of any fish that's going to be down there in the substrate might get scraped up a little bit. There's a chance that could happen. So my preference would be to put it in the filter bag just because you're going to get a greater impact on the water, and then you don't have to worry about any issues with any of your bottom feeders.
Jason, pertaining to crushed coral, do you add it to your shell dwellers tanks regularly? I've got hard water, but I've noticed my snails' shells are dissolving.
So I'm lucky enough where I generally don't have to do that. So all my water comes out of the tap at right around 10 to 12 degrees water hardness, which now you're looking at, actually it's probably closer to 12 and sometimes slightly higher. So maybe you're looking at 180 to 200 parts per million of both general and carbonate hardness is what I'm usually finding. So I don't really have to add anything. However, in most of my shell dweller tanks, I have either like large rock structures that are going to increase water hardness. Even I've got a 20 long with all the mystery snails in there. And the water itself has been sufficient to make sure that the snails, for the most part, their shells are relatively thick. And I've had hundreds of snails in that 20-gallon. But I found when I do my water changes, it replenishes the water hardness that are necessary for them. Same thing with all my lake Tanganyika fish, all my cichlids in general. So I've lucked out in that respect where I haven't had to add it if I were going to add it. One of the things that you can do if you're setting up a new tank and you're worried about, maybe that stuff being a little bit sharp, is you can put it down as the first layer and then put your other sand or if you're using gravel, put that on top. And then of course you've also got it that you can use in the filter bag. John, I don't know how you use it if you have and what you typically do.
I mean, I haven't had the issue with cories because I haven't needed to put it in a tank with cories. My cory tanks have always been planted tanks with either a planting substrate or sand or something like that. The tanks that I've used crushed coral in, it's always just been the substrate because it's been something like African tanks or something like that. So I haven't had to put it into a bag, but I have put, what is that stuff called?
Peat?
No. Well, I've done that too, but I'm saying to harden the water.
To harden the water?
What is that? I don't even remember what it's called. Carib sells it. I don't remember, but they're like rocks, not lava rocks, but it's some type of rocks that I've put into my sump to harden the water up. But I personally have not had to take crushed coral and put it into bags. I've just used it as substrate. So.
Yeah, and the other thing too with the crushed coral is it often doesn't noticeably increase KH, carbonate hardness, but it will increase GH. So that's just something to keep in mind too.
Did you have a particular your your better half is waiting for you, right? I mean, am I keeping you too long, or I'm
No,
just
no, no. She's probably, if I know her, she's probably still setting stuff up and trying to make sure that everything's perfect. So when we go down there and actually film, it's ready to go. So
gotcha? Because I mean, I'm looking at 300 people still watching. It'd be a shame
yeah,
to just just bail now. But let's see.
KG Cichlids mentioned something. Aquarium Co-op found that corridors in the wild are often found on sharp gravel. That's absolutely true. And that's why it's one of the reasons why I've got corys throughout a number of my fish tanks. And I've never really made a concerted effort to put them on sand. I'd always found that, I put them on certain types of gravel, and I've never really stressed about it. And I've also never had any issues. But sometimes the crushed coral can be really sharp. So it just depends on where you get it and the brand that you buy. But if it's standard stuff, it might not be a big deal.
So since we're caught up on the questions and I've got a cattail in my face, I got a video coming out tomorrow that is about not quarantining. I don't mean that as if it's a video saying you shouldn't quarantine.
Right.
It's a video that is, what if you can't? Basically, because I put 2 arowanas in this tank here and I didn't quarantine them. And a lot of people called me out in the comments for it, which I understand. But then again, I have people, this tank didn't have any fish in it at all when we put Africans in it. And people gave me crap about that. Why didn't you quarantine them? It's like, I'm putting them into a tank with no other fish. What's
that is the quarantine tank at
right.
that point. Yeah.
But anyway, since there still is 300 people here watching, I wanted to get your take on that. Because of course you've got 60 whatever tanks, you've got options. But what would you tell someone if they came to you and they said, I've got a 75-gallon tank and it's got this fish in it, and I had a couple of fish die. I really want to add other fish, but I can't quarantine them. What would you suggest? Because I don't have another tank or whatever. What would you suggest to someone? I guess that would also be like, what is your views on quarantining?
Well, my view, so I did another really long video on quarantine, and I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend quarantine your fish. And the point I make in that video is not just quarantine them, but make sure everything that goes into that tank, comes out of that tank, is also part of your quarantine protocol. What's interesting about fish is sometimes they'll look fine when you get them, and they'll be fine for a week or two, and then all of a sudden you start to notice not only those fish maybe not acting right, but other fish in your tank, existing fish, start maybe going off feed. A lot of fish disease that you can bring into a tank may not appear for as long as 3 to 4 weeks. And so the point that I made in that video is you need to quarantine for at least 3 to 4 weeks. Now, if you're setting up a new tank, as John just mentioned, that can be your quarantine tank. If you're in a situation where for whatever reason you absolutely cannot quarantine the fish, maybe you are severely limited in space and you simply cannot have another tank. Outside of that, I would always recommend, you will save so much money. And I think we all know in fish keeping, perhaps the most stressful thing is when your fish gets sick. It can ruin your day, it can ruin your week, just to watch them and feel helpless, like I'm doing all these things, it's not getting better. And all of a sudden you're spending $20, $30, $50, $100 on meds, and you're obsessed about the fish, trying to keep them alive. You lose existing fish. So maybe now you've lost $100 or $200 worth of existing fish. When a $10 per gallon sale comes along, a simple cycled sponge filter, that's really all you need for a quarantine tank for most fish, right? Obviously, if you got an arowana, that's not going to work. But if you can spend $10 on a 10 gallon and have a cycled sponge filter, that's it. Maybe a heater. That's what all you need. So short of that, if that's absolutely not possible, a lot of times what I'll do, especially if the fish are suspect or if there's a chance that something could happen, that might be a situation where you pre-treat your tank. Maybe I am going to treat ahead of time for ick. Maybe I am going to use a general cure, or the erythromycin, and do that trio just to make absolutely sure that these fish are not bringing in disease. And because they are not covered in ick already, if you add those ick meds ahead of time, the likelihood that the fish will get ick and spread it to your tank are greatly reduced. So the ick video I did really is a lesson on why you should quarantine. So I went out to a local club and we just had our meeting, and I got something like 11 angelfish. I picked up, so it was 11 angelfish, 3 cribensis, 2 platies, and some other fish. I might have gotten like 20 fish, and I think collectively they might have cost like $10. I did not think it through. I didn't have enough space to properly quarantine. So I said, okay, the 125 is going to be my quarantine tank. Now, there were some fish already in there. I had some black phantom tetras in there, and I put these fish in there. And what happened? What happened?
The same
A few
thing
days
that happened
later,
in Lisa's beta tank.
yep, all of a sudden I got spots. And you know what? The worst part about it? The fish I put in there, it seems, I think the ick came in with one of the platies. So of all the fish I bought, basically these platies you can pick up for $1, I think is the one that brought ick into the tank, because a couple days later that fish had died. And then the worst part about it is the fish that I had brought in, they weren't the ones that were showing the spots. All of my beloved black phantom tetras. I had this big school of about 20 of them, and they were the ones that were showing the spots. So then I had to treat that entire tank. And of course, treating a 125 is far more expensive than treating, had I just had 3 10-gallons set up, maybe I could have just watched them, and if something happened, I could have treated a 10-gallon and not 125-gallon and all the existing fish. So if you can quarantine, do it. If not, if you want to put the ick meds in there, that's certainly an option.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that story is that so many people would tell you, if you want to be certain that you're getting good, clean fish, go and buy them from these fish swaps and stuff like that, because the breeders and stuff. And then look what happened with you. I mean, it can happen anywhere. And but
it's the first time that's ever happened. I had never, in all the years I've gone to club meetings, I had never, ever, ever gotten any kind of fish disease. And, so at some point you're like, it'll be, law of averages, it's going to be fine. You throw them in there, and it wasn't fine. So it was a reminder to me where I preach this, make sure you quarantine. And then I don't do what I say, and look what happens. I pay the price, and I deserved it.
It's one thing when you have as many tanks as you do, and you could easily just point the camera in another direction. I mean, I know you have like a nice shot that you like to use as your backdrop in a lot of your videos, but you can easily turn it the other way and people just don't have to see what's going on over there. But with Lisa's tank, that was horrible, because it's like this tank is in the live stream every Thursday. And people are going to ask, and she just put this video out about it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it was a major problem that she had in that tank, and it was a result of not quarantining. Yeah. So the interesting thing about our channel is that we put a video out last week on this is what can happen if you don't quarantine. And then tomorrow's video is going to be about, hey, I didn't quarantine these fish, and guess what? Everything's okay. But it's just kind of both sides of the spectrum. I am someone that believes you absolutely should quarantine. But then there's sometimes you just can't. And, but we put 40 neon tetras in a 125-gallon tank that had no fish in it. And people gave us crap because we didn't quarantine them. And then I put these fish, there's like 27 fish or whatever in this tank that was empty. And people gave us crap for it. It's like, that's the dumbest thing ever. It happened with this tank too. When I went out with Rack and I bought the 2 arowanas and the Oscars and the Severums, and I put them in this new cycled tank. And they're like, you didn't quarantine them first? It's like, really? In a brand new tank? Why? Anyway, I had a little fun with that in the video for tomorrow. But yeah. So let's see. Do you quarantine new fish together in one tank if they came from the same place? Or if they are bagged separately, do you quarantine in a separate tank? That's a very good question.
It depends on how much space you have, how many quarantine tanks you have open. Ideally, it would probably be best to quarantine them in separate tanks. But what I've found, if you really look at what many pet stores do, and I won't say all of them, but at least the ones that I have observed, their nets, their hands, their equipment is going from one tank to the next, to the next, to the next. So at that point, if you've got ick in one tank and they're using those nets, and then they're going to use that exact same net in another tank, there's a very high likelihood that they're spreading that around. So at that point, for me, most of the time, I will just take the fish. If I need to quarantine them and I've gotten them from the same location, or even if I got them from different locations, but at the same time, if I only have one tank open, I don't have any issues with throwing all those fish in the same tank, doing the observation. So I'm one of those people that I generally don't use meds in my quarantine tank unless I see there is an issue. And I realize that's different from what other people do. And I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong way to do that. Do what you feel most comfortable with, what's going to help you sleep better at night. I tend not to waste the meds unless there's an issue, and very rarely do I have to use them. But I usually combine them.
I would too. Yeah. So yeah, I wish we could find something we disagree on, because that would be more fun. Lisa and I disagree on things, and we're right here facing each other, and we have fun with that. But you and I, we see so much alike. I mean, and it's just me basically knowing that whatever you say is correct. So I'm just going to go along with.
Well, it might not be. It's just what I do is not always, sometimes people disagree, but it works for me. And I don't get hung up in that. I don't think you do either, where if something is working and you've had a history of success with it, great. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to do things the same way. And it doesn't mean that if somebody else is doing it a different way, that
they're wrong.
It's bad. Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, and that's, I've always been that way. It's like when you came on my stream for the first time, the title of the stream was Breaking All the Rules, because that's what the main topic was of that video was,
right.
There is this fake rule book that people will say you have to follow. And there are some things that I think are absolute gospel, like you should cycle your tank, and there's, but there's so much of this hobby is based on experience, and it might work perfect for one person and be a complete failure for the next. And that's just, you get that from experience, and, your tank with all those different fish mixed up in it is the perfect example of that. I mean, it's like, look, it's perfectly fine in that tank. How can you say it can't be done? Right. All you have to do is look at that tank. So,
and like we said in the past, I can afford to take more chances because I always have other ways to move fish around. There's a lot of tanks that I have right now that if that was my only tank, they probably wouldn't be set up the way they are, because I wouldn't want to take the chance. What if it doesn't work out? What if that Midas cichlid that I put in that 125? What if that 125 was the only tank I had? Well, guess what I have to do now? I've got to fish out a 9 or 10 inch Midas cichlid and figure out where that's going to go. That's not easy to do. So if that was the only tank I had, I wouldn't go to a pet store and bring that fish home and be like, it's probably going to be okay, knowing that there's a chance this might not work.
Right. Yeah. Always have the backup plan. Yeah. The backup plan is key. Charlotte Jackson has given $30 tonight. Wow. $14.99 again. I'm pretty sure that's her second $14.99 stream. Super chat. Thank you so much for that, you guys. Stream has been awesome. Well, you've been awesome for hanging out with us for over 2 hours. That's amazing. And then our friend Rack came in with the superhero pair emoji with the $10 super chat. And Bob decided to get in on that party last second with what looks like a cheerleader pair.
Wow.
With the $10 super chat. That's a lot of fun. Okay. You're an Apple guy, right?
I am.
So you open up Apple Music, what would be the first song that would pop up?
I have no idea. I haven't opened up that app in so very, very long. I have a very wide range of music tastes, anywhere from country, and sometimes I'll be editing my videos, listening to electronic dance music, EDM, and it's everywhere. It's whatever I feel like at the time, and everything in between. So I have no idea.
People would look at you with the bald head and the tattoos, and they would immediately assume metal. You're a metalhead. Yeah. I mean, I only have one tattoo, and they say the same thing about me. But
back in the 80s, for me, it was punk rock, and then it kind of morphed into grunge in the 90s, and then it was just got into all the club music, and now it's just all over the place. I'm a real mess when it comes to music.
Don't talk to me about punk music. I mean, I grew up 20 miles from DC. I mean, we're talking Bad Brains, Minor Threat, Fugazi.
Oh my gosh, you're the first person I've ever met that talks about those things. Yeah.
Really?
Well, we were close to the Metro in Chicago, so that was Naked Ray Gun. It was Jane's Addiction. It was 7 Seconds. All those bands back in the day.
I shook Dave Navarro and Henry Rollins' hand. Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction,
Yeah.
Henry Rollins,
Black
we all know who he is.
Yeah.
At Lollapalooza in 1991 with
Wow.
those guys' hand. And Vernon Reed from Living Color and Ice-T. It was Lollapalooza, and so it was
Yeah.
a bunch of different types of bands. And but Dave Navarro was the one that was like the big deal for me because I was a huge Jane's Addiction fan. But yeah, growing up here in DC, it's unfortunate because the age I was when you had bands like Minor Threat and Fugazi and the Misfits and
Uh-huh.
the Misfits weren't a DC band, but
Right.
I couldn't go see them because I was too young, and my parents would be like, "What?" But I find myself falling down the rabbit hole all the time of watching punk from the DC area back. Oh man, that's just those
Yep.
were the days. That was a beautiful thing. But trying to get in these little personal little questions here. This
Yeah.
one is not personal though. You did the video, which was very good, the week or so ago about the new Penguin hang on the back
Yeah.
filter. I'm a lifelong, it seems like my entire life, Penguin fan. I love that hang on the back filter. I just went out, spoiler alert to people watching, I just went out and bought 5 hang on the back filters for the purposes of doing reviews of these filters on my channel.
Nice.
I bought all of them are the size for a 30-gallon aquarium. My question for you is, do you know that Penguin Pro or is it Emperor Pro?
Emperor? Yeah.
Are they like the Emperor was only the Emperor 400?
Right.
Is that the case with this one too, or are they
So-
making the smaller version?
I thought there were, and I don't know this 100%. One I saw on Amazon, it hasn't been released yet, but there was an Emperor Pro 375. So they got the 450, which is the one I reviewed. And I thought there were going to be smaller versions of that as well. So I'm not 100% sure what sizes are being released, if they're just using the Emperor as their only line, if they're going to be updating the Penguin line as well. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. And I'm still waiting to see when the release date's going to be, for the Emperor, the new Emperor Pro line, because so far that filter, there have been a number of times I've walked by, I put on that 150, I've walked by the tank and I was getting ready to call Luke down, like, hey man, why didn't you turn the filter back on after you did the water change? And it's on. So it's, one of the things that people had mentioned with the Penguin line is that, it can be a little bit noisy. And it's not something I ever clue into because it's in the fish room, so it doesn't matter. But if it's in your bedroom, that would be a different story. But that Emperor Pro line so far has been the quietest filter I've ever owned. It's crazy.
It is the only complaint that I have about the AquaClear filters.
Yeah.
I announced it on my Thursday stream that I'm going to be doing these videos, and somebody commented, and rightfully so, they commented, spoiler alert, AquaClear is the best. The AquaClear is a great filter.
Yeah.
But that story you just told is my story for the AquaClears. Every single AquaClear I've ever had, that impeller rattles. It makes a lot of noise, and it's every single one of them. And I've probably had 30 AquaClear filters in my time. They're great filters, and I feel like they probably are the best from a versatility standpoint and all that. I've always loved the Penguins, but not the hockey team. I mean the filters,
Right.
But that's the only complaint I have about the AquaClears is that they always make noise. Every single one I've ever had did that. But I haven't had that problem with the Penguins though.
No, and I've got, so when it comes to filtration, I think one of the videos, I don't think I realized it was going to cause so much of a, controversy. I did a video where I compared AquaClear and Marineland. And I just went off my personal experience. I said, hey, I've had a few AquaClears. They didn't work well for me. And I've had these Penguins up and running for, 10, 12 years, and they always just keep running. And oh my goodness, you would have thought I said that, I called somebody's mother a name or something. I was like, holy cow, I'm just sharing my personal experience. And I don't doubt for a second that people who have had great luck with AquaClears, I mean, I'm sure they are, and that's awesome. I don't really have any personal, skin in the game for any of these filters. If they're working, just, if whatever filter you're using is working well for you,
Right.
just keep using it. Don't change. If you're finding the AquaClear is giving you the surface area you want, and it's been quiet and it's been reliable, then why bother changing? And oh yeah, that was
And
still to this day.
it's really funny how, I don't even know how to say this. Like, there are definitely trends in this hobby.
Yeah.
And there was oh, Lisa's here.
Wow.
We're still on here live. You gonna come say hi or no? It's okay. She's in the building, ladies and gentlemen, but oh, here she comes. I don't know. Well, come get this cat because he's been driving me crazy the whole stream. The trends, like AquaClear is one of them. I mean, it's like everybody that you see will say AquaClears are the best hang on the back filters. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. There seems to be a lot of trends that maybe YouTube creates the trends. I don't know. It's like everybody either loves a brand or they absolutely hate a brand, or you know what I mean? It's weird.
Sure.
It's just weird. I guess social media is just the way it goes. I think there's like 18 hi Lisas on the chat so far.
Yeah.
Priscilla, Multi-Tank Addiction, Rack, Candy Overhauls, Ginger Graves. They're all saying hi to you. She's gonna come say hi. So this is the new microphone. You can just talk right into it.
This is a new one?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Super cool. Hey,
Let's
Jason.
see if you sound like a radio announcer. Go ahead, say a few words to the fans.
You got to get kind of close to this one. You gotta get closer to it.
I'm so tired. I really don't know what to say.
Oh wow, yeah,
Hey. Looks like
the microphone is awesome. You're gonna have a lot of fun with it next Thursday.
with what? Oh,
The new microphone.
Yeah,
The new
that-
microphones.
what we're
Not-
just talking about.
No one has said the word echo yet today.
No.
And the only people that have said that are people that are just being silly geese.
Aw. So cool.
But there's also only one microphone in the room, so there wouldn't have been any echo.
Right.
But
That's cool.
so yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go in here and unwind from that long.
Which
Work
means, where's the corkscrew? That's basically what she meant to just say.
Okay.
It's Saturday.
So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna have fun with the with this new series of videos I'm gonna do on the filters.
We have more puppies.
Shocker. I don't know if I'm gonna do one filter each week. I think that would kind of drag things on for a long time. But I bought 5 of them, and I'm gonna put them all on and then give them all away at the end because that's fun to do that. So the only one and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have the Penplex, which I've never used one of their products ever in my life. And it's not because I'm against them. It's just I just haven't. I don't know if there's any other hang on the back filters that I need to get. Let me see here. I've got the Fluval, the AquaClear.
Yeah.
The Top Fin.
Yeah.
The Whisper, the Tetra Whisper.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Of course, the Penguin and the AquaClear.
Nice.
I like the Aquarium.
And then the Aquarium. The quiet
I think
flow
that-
with the silly LED thing on it.
So I did a video on one of the older versions, and that's the one that's got the internal impeller, right? The quiet flow. That thing is also extremely quiet.
Yes, it
So
does.
anything. And then did you do anything with the the C-Chem? Did you get one of those?
No, because I didn't know that there was a C-Chem one.
Yes, go get. And in fact, they make a smaller one. It's this C-Chem Title 30, I believe. In fact, it would fit in really well because that's also got an internal motor and it's got a surface skimmer. So you could talk about that too. That would be a really good one because that's one when people like the AquaClears, they often will. There's a lot of crossover between the AquaClears and the C-Chems. The C-Chem 30 would definitely be one to check out.
I wasn't even aware that there was one by C-Chem.
That's a newer one. So they I think the smallest one they'd made previously was like a C-Chem 55, and then they made the C-Chem 30, which is a smaller version. But it's interesting. But
I will have to look that up for sure. Multi-Tank Addiction came in with another $2 heart emoji. And Priscilla, we got to love Priscilla, came in with an angry cat emoji with the $2, which is absolutely adorable. So are we going to have to wrap things up now or what? I mean, we're going on 2.5 hours.
We probably should.
That's a struggle here. Let's see. 277 people still watching.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. But, all good things must certainly come to an end. And I'm certainly grateful for you coming on and doing this. You're the first.
Thanks for having me.
You're the first one in this new series of guest spots that I'll be doing. That's
very cool.
People that are watching this, if you enjoyed this, first of all, you should be subscribed to Jason's channel. I'm pretty sure it is the fastest growing fish keeping channel on YouTube right now. Pound for pound, It has to be. It has to be.
I don't think so. There's some quick growing ones. You're one of them. So.
Well, but I'm saying pound for pound, it has to be. The percentage wise, the percentage of new subscribers you get every day, I bet you is more than the percentage of subscribers I get every day. And you know what? It's with good reason. The guy is a nice guy for one, and he's super educated on this, and he does this for the love of it. So you got to love that. So if you have not subscribed to his channel, you're doing something wrong. You're missing out. So you definitely have to do that. Oh boy,
the pressure's on, peer pressure.
You're good, and you know it. And that wife of yours is definitely adding to the channel for sure. So, and that's a game changer, my friend.
She's got her whole thing now. She's doing her own Monday videos, and I'm still with my Wednesdays, Saturdays. So she's gotten into the mix a little bit. She's got unique things going on. I'm sure Lisa brings that too, which is kind of cool. All of a sudden they think of something, you're like, huh, I've never thought about that.
But is she recording everything and then handing it off to you to edit, and then, or is she editing?
No.
She's editing her videos?
I am filming. She does the stuff, and then I film it, edit it, upload it, all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's what Lisa does too. She'll hand me the card. Here you go. And I basically have to take it over from there. But the good thing there, Rena, stop. The good thing there is that's the part I enjoy the most, is the editing part. And all
I do too. Yeah.
I don't mind it at all. I mean, I could sit here and talk video editing all night long, believe me, because I love that part of it. Are you serious? Be quiet. Is that coming through on the microphone?
What was funny is I started looking around. I'm like, where's this cat coming from? I'm like, we don't have any cats. I thought it was outside in the driveway or something.
He does this. He's like a drama queen. He starts like howling like a dog. It's crazy. But we love him. He's our little fish room cat. So, but anyway, it has been an absolute blast. The viewers that are watching, if you enjoyed this and you want to see this continue, I'm not saying I'm going to drag Jason into this every single week, but you want to see this guest spot series on Saturday nights, you want to see this keep going, then let me know in the comments below. Somebody just clicked the dislike button, so that's somebody who doesn't like this new thing. But I don't know that I'm going to do this always at 7 o'clock. I think that probably it'll depend on my schedule and whoever the guest is scheduled for that particular show. But I would like to start doing this maybe every 2 weeks or something like that. We'll get a new guest on, and you were the first one, and you were the guinea pig, and I think it went well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on. Again, I love just reading the comments and getting to talk with everybody.
It's very difficult because you always feel guilty, like, oh, did I miss this person? I missed that person. You can't answer them all, and that is tough. But this is one of the reasons why we only had it available for members to chat, because if you had it available to everybody, it would have been absolutely impossible to keep up with all of the comments. So if that is something that bothers you, think about becoming a member, and then maybe you can participate in the next one. So let me know who you think the next guest should be. And Jason, you want to put it on the schedule for when you're going to come back, you just let me know.
Awesome.
And Candy, you're coming up. You just haven't given me a date. I told you, you just have to give me a date. And
that's one I can't wait to see.
Yeah, everybody's looking forward to that one. And I think that's why she's hesitant because she doesn't like being on camera, and I understand that.
Come on. Yep.
So anyway, thank you all. Don't hang up yet, Jason, because I want to say goodbye to you off camera. But thank you all so much for hanging out. This really was a whole lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Don't forget to check out Jason's channel if you haven't already, and give him one of those thumbs up and all of that. And there you go. I don't know. I'm rambling now. So thank you again, Jason, and thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you, everybody.